and the city in which you live. For the record, that would be great. If you haven't filled out a blue card yet, what I'd like you to do is fill one out and give it to us at the end.
Yeah, I filled one out for 2 of the 3, and I didn't know there was a third, so here I am.
Oh, okay. So this has to only be focused on the map.
And can I do the other 2 later
No.
on, or, so
No.
this is my one shot?
No. You can only talk about the map.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh, I see.
Yeah, you can, if you can come back up for the next one, come back up for the next one.
I might
But
get
we
the
want to
hook by
stay
then, though.
the topic. We haven't started, so don't worry.
Okay.
So if you'd like to talk about the map, please go ahead. But please state your name, mailing address, and city in which you live.
Sure, it's Jim Welch. I'm at 1130 Creekside Drive in the city. And I had been out of town, so I really hadn't had a chance to study the agenda. But I take strong offense, or not offense personally, but at the way the open land is being viewed. And I know it's private property and people can develop it, but between the rivers is some pretty beautiful areas. And talking about when those lots develop is getting way far ahead of where we are as far as the city goes, I think.
Yeah.
And so I wish we maybe not sort of tumble over our own feet and go that far ahead, at this point.
So this topic tonight is about the map itself, not about developments or anything along those lines.
What it did come up as far as the right-of-way goes.
Correct.
And so that's the connection.
I understand now. Okay.
Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments with regard to the map? Mr. Welsh, I'll bring you back up for the other one too. I found your card had 2 of them on, so thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing for the official city map. Move on to our next public hearing, which is a Rockwell Project Plan Development Overlay District. The purpose is to hear public comments on rezoning a .62 acres at 121 to 135 North Main Street for the Rockwell Mixed-Use Development. The parcels of the proposed development are zoned mixed-use commercial district and identified by tax key numbers OCO 053, 0563.346, OCOC, and you see it in the announcement. The request is to add the planned development overlay to the existing MC zoning district. The purpose of the PD overlay is to allow a structure to exceed the allowable height of 50 feet to 69 feet 6 inches, reduce the shoreline setback from 45 feet to 0 feet, and to remove the building setback requirement of 5 feet within the first 30 feet to 0 feet, and to reduce the 10-foot step back between 30 to 50 feet to 5 feet. If approved, the applicant intends to develop a 5-story mixed-use building containing retail and restaurant on the ground floor, at grade parking and underground parking, and 20 residential condominium units. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman, I'll give a brief introduction to the this PD request this evening for the public hearing. I always start out with a general location map. In the public notice, it was described as several parcels. It's approximately 121 through 135 North Main Street. The location is shown up on the screen. We all know it's has water on one side and Main Street on the other, and Village Green with public parking on the other side. There's a few things I'd like to talk about tonight during the presentation that you'll hear about, so I wanted you to see visibly where they're located. There's some light poles in the water. Right now, that's because the boardwalk used to extend over the water and go along this way here, and then that was removed several years ago. The light poles were never removed. The boardwalk is going to be extended, and that's where that red area is going to be. The parking lot would be extended, and that's where the purple area is. And then I am going to talk a little bit about this transformers being relocated as part of the site development. So I wanted you to see, and I thought this was the best slide to show where that transformer is located. What is the project? It's described as a mixed-use building. So here's a rendering. This is a drawing, computer-aided drawing of what the building would look like. It's a 5-story building, mixed use, having non-residential uses on the ground floor, and then 4 stories of residential units above the non-residential. The non-residential would include retail, potentially a restaurant use on the ground floor. These are some renderings of some of the areas of the building. You can see down here, there's a boardwalk extension that's part of the plan. There'd be some signage that talks about its public boardwalk, even though the building itself cantilevers over it. This would be extension of the existing boardwalk. That's one of the ideas behind this project. There's also the architectural features. You can see the nice, the windows here that have the arched ways resembling a historic look to it. This object right here on the side of the building, that's going to be a signage. There is a step back that I wanted to point out because that's going to be talked about later in the presentation. You can see there's a step back there. This is the front facing Main Street, front of the building. There's a cantilevered item here. I'll be showing that later on in the presentation as well. So it just kind of gives you some feel on the building and the architecture, the exterior. The site itself is on the agenda for what's called a certified survey map. That would be to combine the 4 parcels plus part of the village green. The total site area that this project needs is 0.62 acres, so a little more than a half acre, less than a 2/3, 26,000 square feet. Of that, 0.37 acres is owned by Rockwell right now, and a 1/4 acre is city land, part of the village green, as well as that existing parking area up there now. So that is, this is a private-public partnership. They would be, this land would be going towards the project. So obviously the area in blue would be the city land, and the orangish color is the Rockwell property. So there's some village green changes being made with this. They are using some of it. Right now there's a total of 10 or 11 parking stalls, and they'd be moving it to 21 parking stalls when all done. This parking lot, even though it's part of their project, it would maintain a public parking lot. And I guess the purpose of this slide really is to show that the total amount of public space, they calculate it as increasing because there is removal of some of these sidewalks. So the amount of green area that would be there is actually going to be greater. There is a floodplain fill request along with this, and we did not act on this. It's not on the agenda, but I wanted you to be aware of it so you have the full picture. This would come later if need be, if the site plan is approved. They're adding 26 cubic yards of fill. The lake would rise 0.002 inches, and I was told by an engineer that's about the thickness of a sheet of paper. So the flood elevation would change from 861 to 864 in that area in the green right there. So that's something that would come, if the site plan and the zoning is approved, they would have to come back for a floodplain map amendment. They have talked with the FEMA and the DNR, and they've got a conditional letter of map revision. It's called a CLOMAR based on fill. And so there's been other eyes looking at that floodplain, and they feel it would not create any adverse impacts. So, but we'd still have to amend our floodplain maps on the city. So this is a planned development. You're wondering, well, what is a planned development? What does that all mean? Well, they can request exemptions from our zoning ordinance. In return, the city is to get some public benefits. So I would like to just go through those a little bit. The building setbacks, we have a 0 setback in the downtown. We have buildings right next to each other. But we have a 45-foot setback from the water, and they're actually wanting to go right up to the water's edge with the boardwalk. The building height, we have a 50-foot requirement in this particular part of the downtown. Other areas, it's much higher, but in this area, it's 50 feet. They wanted to go up to 69 feet, 6 inches, and then they'll have some additional equipment on top going a little higher than that. And then building step backs, we have a requirement. We didn't want that canyon effect of buildings. We want some to go up a little and then over, and then up a little more and over. And I can read you the code. It says, buildings with an overall height of 50 feet or greater shall incorporate a minimum of a 5-foot step back in the first 30 feet, and then another second 10-foot step back thereafter. And they don't meet that. We'll talk about architecture a little bit later on. So what does the city get in return for granting some flexibility on setbacks, height, and step backs? Public restrooms, I'll show you where those are. The boardwalk extension, public parking expansion, environmental cleanup, removal of blight, a public fishing pier, historic architecture, and village green enhancements. None of this would happen without the project. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. There's public benefits as part of this application. So the exemption number 1, building setback encroachment, we talked about this. They showed this exhibit. I wanted you to know though that there's the boardwalk is right here, and the building goes all the way up, right up to the water's edge line. So the building will cantilever over the boardwalk and be right up to that. 0 foot there. This is an example of what it would look like. You can see the boardwalk is right here, and the building. Also, I put this in because it's kind of a setback encroachment, but kind of not. It's going, not only is the 0 setback right here, but the building has some features like these canopies that'll actually be out over the sidewalk along Main Street. This is not new in the downtown. We've got many types of canopies and signs that encroach into the right-of-way in Wisconsin Avenue and Main Street. But we do require some type of encroachment agreement, revocable encroachment that's part of the to-do list if this is viewed favorable tonight. Exemptions 2 and 3 is the building height and step back. You can see that they says top of parapet 69 feet 6 inches. And that's what they're calling the building height. I agree, that's by definition, that's the building height, 69 feet 6 inches. They're also showing a couple step backs. They're showing a 5 foot between levels 3 and 4. This is somewhere where it's 5 foot, people can walk out here. But they really don't have, that's at the 42-foot level. They don't have anything in the first 30 feet that's required. They say, well, this is out there, that's a canopy along Main Street, but it's not truly on their property, so they are asking for an exemption. The architecture was approved by the Architectural Commission. We talked about the step backs quite a bit, and they said that even though it doesn't meet the definition to the letter of the law, they felt it met the spirit and the intent of that code, giving this some visual step back so it doesn't look like it's one contiguous building going straight up. I wanted you to see how tall the top it is. This bottom line here is the 69 feet 6 inches level, and then there's some mechanicals and elevator shafts and some trellises up here. This will be public space for, not public, but open to people, private residents, to go up there and walk around, so there is usable space. They do have some mechanicals and stuff that goes all the way up to the 80-foot level. Those were concentrated more in the center of the building, so when you're down below, you won't see up that high. They've provided a roof structure height diagram, and the stuff in red is 6 feet, and then the taller stuff is more in the center, the 9-foot that's the elevators, and then these are the elevators right here is 14 feet. So mostly around the border is stuff that will not be seen from down below. Let's get into some of the public benefits. They are including public restrooms. We all know there's a need for some restrooms down near the Village Green area. They'll put a men's and a women's room in, and this will be operated by them at no cost to the city, and it'll be maintained by them as well, no taxpayer dollar. There's 5 stalls on each side, 5 women's, and then two water closets for the men with 3 urinals. So it's a little janitor's closet right here that would be part of it as well. So there's public restrooms facing the parking lot of Village Green. They are putting in some parking as well, 42 stalls, which conforms to the code requirements. That's 2 stalls per unit. All the stalls are underground, so the cars will be driving in through this area here and then going around. So 42 stalls underground. In addition to that, they'll be adding 10 new surface stalls for public parking. The agreement for this hasn't been finalized. Again, that'll come back to the council about who's taking snow removal and stuff like that. But I wanted to show you an exhibit. The underground parking is for private, and then the surface parking would all be public parking. So encroachment onto the Village Green has been a question of what's going on here. So there's 18 feet of encroachment from the existing sidewalk edge to the proposed sidewalk edge. So they're basically taking 18 additional feet, not taking, but that's incorporated into the project. This darker line shows the existing edge of the parking lot that's currently there right now, and this is where the new parking lot would be. The driveway to get into this would be moved a little bit further south, and that's closer to the lighted intersection. This is where the existing one is right now. So there will be a total of 21 parking stalls on the lot. This is a good slide to talk about the piers as well. This is a fishing pier, and this is a boat slip pier. This pier here would be a public pier that they would be putting in as a public benefit. This would be a private pier with 2 slips for the public to use for transient boats to come dock and then eat in the downtown or shop in the downtown. There was some discussion by the Plan Commission about this parking stall right here. It's in the far southeast corner of the lot. How do you pull in and pull out of this? It would be very challenging. All these other ones, you can pull straight back into this area. If you pull in and all the stalls are full, you can back into this area and then get out. But this one was challenging. The Plan Commission had all sorts of ideas. Maybe you stripe it as non-usable, maybe you sign it for compact cars, maybe motorcycles, maybe you make this one a handicap stall and then this could be striped. So what the solution ended up being was the applicants kept 21 stalls. I just received this today. And they moved all these stalls down. All the stalls do conform to our code. They're all 9 by 18 feet in size. But they moved it to create a little bit of a bump out right here. So now this car that pulls in can bump and turn this way and then come out. So should it be a little bigger? It would have been ideal to be a little bigger, but that's about the best they could do and the car can still maneuver out of that. So there was discussion about traffic with any development, traffic. So the applicants did hire a consulting firm, TADI, Traffic Analysis Design Incorporated. They're one of the leading firms of traffic in southeast Wisconsin, for sure. I'll just read a little bit. It said in the conclusion, they've submitted the entire report to us, but the existing Main Street intersection with Wisconsin Avenue is expected to continue to operate acceptably during the peak hours with the additional traffic expected from the proposed development with increases in delay of 3 seconds or less and increases in queuing for any specific movement of 1 vehicle or less. Therefore, no changes to the geometrics or traffic control are recommended at the existing signalized intersection. So that's the intersection of Main and Wisconsin. The proposed site access driveway onto Main Street is also expected to operate acceptably during the peak hours with additional traffic expected from the proposed development. In addition, based on the projected traffic volumes, turning movement volumes at the site driveway are not expected to be high enough to warrant exclusive turn lanes in the northbound or southbound traffic lanes. All movements at the study area intersections are expected to operate safely and efficiently through the opening year under current geometric and traffic control conditions. So that was done by John Bieberitz, a professional traffic engineer. So they did submit a landscaping plan. I know that the Plan Commission did look at this, but I wanted to highlight something up in the corner, and this slide did show that nicely. The Main Street changes are being updated. The crossing currently is more down by Splash, and now it's going to be moved a little bit to line up with the walkway that goes along the lakefront of LaBelle. So that's part of the updates that this project is bringing. There is a lighting plan that was submitted. I know it's hard to read the photometrics, but they are adding these decorative lights to the area. So there will be, a parking lot will be illuminated. So when people leaving in the evening hours, will be able to see out there. This transformer, was discussed at length, both with staff and the applicants and the Plan Commission and even the Architectural Commission. I said earlier it's being relocated because it's currently in the parking lot area. It's right here, it's on a 7x9 pad, and it had to go somewhere. We looked at optional alternative locations for this, and this is really about the best we can do to preserve the most amount of land on the village green and keep it accessible for our utilities to get to it. This transformer serves a lot of businesses in the downtown, so it really has to stay. It can't go underground. It has to be above ground. So they said either right where it is or even closer to the sidewalk and closer this way, but you don't want to get too close because then you create potential visual impacts for people pulling out of there. So this is about the best we can do. The Architectural Commission said the worst thing you could do would be to put a fence around it because there has to be at least 3 to 5 feet of separation between the fence and the structure. So now you're talking a really big corral, and they said just leave it alone. Maybe you could put a mural on it or something like that. Or you could put some landscaping around it. So that's really up to the Common Council of what we end up doing, but the applicant, we asked them to provide some elevations. Here's the transformer looking across the street on North Main there, and here it is looking towards the project. So with this, there's boardwalk expansion plans, and the boardwalk would not be expanded. There's been a lot of talk about this someday to connect. It's in the downtown plan. The boardwalk, I've had people ask me, how wide is it? Well, this is the current boardwalk, and this is the proposed one. It's going to be even wider than what's currently out there. There's going to be 5 more bump outs, and originally there was only 1 of these new light to match, but we asked for a secondary light. The boardwalk's being designed by Stantec, the same people that designed our existing one. So this will be, the continuity will be there to continue the boardwalk through. And again, the pier would be going in, and the private with 2 public boat slips would be there. So the pier, public fishing pier is funded by TIF, and then this would be private boat slips. So we're wrapping it up. The Architectural Commission approved the building design, colors, and materials for this building on October 5th, so last month. The Plan Commission reviewed it, and they recommended the certified survey map and the PD ordinance on November 2nd of this month. There was a lot of discussion about a lot of different topics. I tried to include a lot of that in this presentation. Tonight, we have the public hearing scheduled. On tonight's agenda, we have the certified survey map to combine these lots and then to act on the plan development overlay that gives them the flexibility. Then several items in the future, such as the floodplain map, amendment, the condominium plat. If this goes forward, they want to condominiumize the building, the TIF project plan, and those various agreements that we talked about. So we have before you tonight a plan development ordinance. What does that all talk about? It grants the site and the building exemptions. It details out all the public benefits. It puts it in writing with signatures. There's future agreements are required. Those are covered. The staging and the construction plans will have to be reviewed. That's talked about at length. This is going to be a tricky one to build because it's adjacent to our park, and it's right on the water, and it's right on a road. Easements and snow storage has to be finalized. That's talked about in there. The floodplain map, condo plat, and the right-of-way encroachment along Main Street. So it's not over tonight. There's still a lot of stuff that has to happen, and that's all put in there. But this is step 1 of the plan development. So the recommendation by staff and what the Plan Commission recommended was that you approve the certified survey map to combine these lands. And this would be contingent upon approving the transfer of the property and the TIF project plan. And then the Plan Commission recommended approval of the PD ordinance that allows that flexibility, but you should only act on that PD ordinance if the CSM passes, because otherwise you're approving a project that's not on land that they don't own. So really, that CSM is the first step, and then if that passes, you can act on the PD ordinance. That's all I have. I'll sit down and shut up. Well, I did have 2 comments, or I received comments from two people, Michael Shea and Telly Tweeden at Greenland Avenue, and then Jason Dvorak both sent in letters of support for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. I'd like to open up the public hearing. Mr. Welch, Jim, if you want to come on back, that way we don't forget you.
Thanks. I usually look at some of the developments around the lakes and step back in horror, but I actually like this one. But one thing that was the number that just could not appear in Mr. Gallo's presentation was the overall height. It's 69 feet to the lip of the top floor, but then all these other structures are on top of it. And I think one of them was up to 16 feet. And so that's an 84-foot height, and that was never mentioned. And I think it's really important that 80 feet? Okay, well, all right, but it's quite a bit over what we normally talk about. And for me, it just seems like this happens over and over and over, that there's a development that seems to be, reasonable, but the developer overreaches a lot, hoping that, maybe when things get taken down a little bit, it'll still be within his investment goals for what he might be returned, on height. But it just seems like the overreach gets all of us up in arms, and the city has a big headache. And it would be nice if we could just have a stricter building set of, building code or set of laws that might reduce some of these conflicts. Because I'm up here all the time, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing about that. But the other thing was, too, was some of the things that Mr. Gallo said might not happen if not for this project, like some of the, cleanup of some of the detritus or just or just improvements along the lakefront or the lake shore that just seem to be going, fallow, whatever. But I hope we could have more confidence in our city that if this doesn't get built, and I'm sure it will, that the city might find a little money to make those improvements, and that the citizens themselves might take it upon themselves to do some of these little projects. So we don't always have to rely on developers to get stuff done, so.
Jim, just for the record, can you please state your address in the city?
Sure, it's
I'm sorry,
1130 Creekside, yeah,
That's okay.
yeah, in city of Oconomowoc.
Thank you.
So I think that's it, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Next up, Dick Reinert.
Yes, I own Splash Martini Bar, which is right across the street from this development. This isn't something I normally do, but I thought it was important because I've been looking at that area for 13 years, and it's been relatively blighted. So when I heard somebody wanted to pump a bunch of money into it, I was kind of excited about that. I balance that with everybody's concern that we want to keep it a quaint city. So I did a lot of thinking on that. But, after looking at the entire city, I looked at that as relatively small section. And if we can get a high-class restaurant, and if they have to do the high rise to make it work, I've decided I'm in favor of it. The parking may hurt us a little bit, but on the whole, that north part of Main Street has been blighted for the 13 years I've been in business. Nobody's done a thing with it. And if somebody wants to make it into something special, I am entirely in favor of it. And I do understand the people that want to keep it the quaint Oconomowoc, but keep in mind that's just one section on the lake. And I've seen their plans, and they've done a good job architecturally of keeping it in the stone motif of the rest of the city, even more so than the other condos that have been built. So I'm very impressed with what they're doing. So being somebody on the fence, I finally concluded, my wife agrees, she wanted me to bring that up. As long as there's not a martini bar put in, I vote in favor. I think it's going to be a big boom for Oconomowoc. Thank you.
And I'm just going to let, for the record, Dick's at 134 North Main Street here in the city of Oconomowoc. Okay. So just as each person comes up, please state your name, full name, your residence in the city in which you live in. Thank you. Maureen Stapleton.
I'm Maureen Stapleton. I live at 128 West Wisconsin Avenue in beautiful downtown Oconomowoc. I are a condo person because I live in one of those condos. And I can recall when poor Jaime Wagon stood before a group of the city fathers back in the day, and nobody knew how to spell condominium then. And some people still don't, and they're afraid of him and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, Jaime ended up building Draper Hall. And I think everybody might be familiar where it is on North Lake Road. And they had the same concerns. Oh my God, we wouldn't see any sunlight ever again because it was going to be dark, because this big building was going to be a big brick building and the sun would never shine again. Well, there's some real nice people that have lived in Draper Hall, and I hope continue, and we've built other condominiums, and they have afforded the city a very nice tax base without taking up too much real estate, so that we can have a vibrant downtown. All the people who live vertically come down from their little condos and apartments, and they walk downtown, and they eat in our restaurants, and they shop in our stores, and they bring, by God, they bring their friends, and they go to the German Christmas market, and all kinds of stuff that's gone on. Because I remember being the chamber president in the 70s, it was crappy here. There was nothing going on. I mean, nothing. The stores were vacant. People wouldn't walk up and down the street. It was just dead. It was not lively and vibrant like it is today. And I'm not saying the condos are the end of the world, but they sure help bring some people in a very small, by comparison to the subdivisions and stuff. They bring a nice tax base to the city. So I hope not everybody will condemn it before you really think it through and say, does it really take up that much space for the ultimate return on that investment to the city of Oconomowoc? And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mark Strong?
Good evening, thank you. My name is Mark Strong. I live at 878 Timberline Court West in the city of Oconomowoc. Would like to just say that my wife and I are in support of the Rockwell project. We've been impressed with just the renderings, the quality of the project. The city has done a good job of putting forth different projects that have improved just the quality of life here with schools, parks, library, and this is just another piece to that puzzle to continue to move forward in the city. So I see this project, as I stated once before, it brings the past to the present to the future. And I would just ask that you consider it and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Luck?
Cheryl Luck, 330 North Oakwood Avenue in the city of Oconomowoc. I know you can't give me answers tonight, but I request answers published in the minutes or even an email for the following questions I have. The Village Green, how much square footage are they, Rockwell project, requesting? I know he said 18 feet by whatever. I'd like to know what the square footage is. How much did the city or us taxpayers pay per square foot for Fong's Garden? Because that's how much Rockwell, well, they should be paying more than that, probably 10% more than what we paid for Fong's per square foot. And then who's paying for the transformer relocation? Because that should be on their back as well, because we're giving them our land. So as I understand, they purchased 0.37 acres and they need a total of 0.62 acres. So we're giving them 0.25 acres for a project that they knew what our building rules were and the square feet of land they were buying. And now they're coming back and saying, okay, we know we only have 0.37 acres, but in order for us to do this project, the city has to give us the Village Green that everybody fought so hard to get for this city. Now, my next thing is the normal is 45 feet setback from the lake. They want to go down to 0. Doesn't the DNR have anything to say about that? I thought there was kind of rules about that. And if the DNR doesn't have anything to say about that, if you're going to pass that for this group, then you better pass it for every resident that lives on the lake in the city of Oconomowoc, because that is only fair. As far as the other setbacks, the step back requirement of 5 feet within the first 30 feet to 0, and reduce a 10-foot step back between 30 to 50 feet to 5. Once again, if you're going to approve all this, this should be approved for everybody going forward then. What is good for one is good for everyone. Yes, I am against this project. I'm not against a condo being built there. I'm not against anything like that. Just build it on the land that you purchased and stay within the rules that we all abide by. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Justman?
Hi. Last time I was here, I commented on being related to the mayor of Watertown, if you recall. And I wanted to comment about that because talk about the tale of like two cities, Watertown and Oconomowoc. I know like, I don't know, probably a dozen people that live in Watertown and come here to commute because everything is going on here. And just to give you a little idea of what I do, I'm an MAI. Yesterday, I spent 5 hours putting questions together for an attorney to cross-examine the head guy of CBRE downtown Los Angeles. I testify in trials in Los Angeles mostly. And I just wanted to say that I think this building looks like a dream out of Venice, Italy, or some like James Bond movie or something like that. It should be in a movie. I think it's really a spectacular building. I think it's going to enhance the community. And you don't want to become like Watertown, where things have basically essentially unchanged for the last 30 years, make it 50 years. And I mean, they still have Hofmeister's funeral home, and the hibernating guy in the wintertime on the billboard of the building for the last, since I've been alive anyways. So you don't want to have a city that becomes stagnated where you get no synergism, lack of financing, and then things just get stagnant and they just like stay that way for 50, 80 years, you know. So I just wanted to comment on that. I think that the constituency that has some concerns with water going underground, I happen to work as a client, Larry Flint, about 10 years ago, and he put a 35-story building right next to the Park La Brea tar pits, practically right across the street. It went 5 stories down. And that building had some engineering difficulties, but they were able to pull off something like that very easily. It should be no problem at all. And that's, by the way, I also own 110 through 114 West Wisconsin Avenue, right next to Eagles Landing. That building that was built in 1888, the green and white building, everybody calls it the old Fresh Baked building. I'm going to slap my name on that black beam before it kills me, before I have to tear down that building. But anyways, I'll talk to the planning authorities, and I wanted to really comment on the good job that Jason does, and Bob and Christie. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Stern?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Common Council. I'm Doug Stern, 215 East Pleasant, City of Oconomowoc. I'm here to speak in favor of the Rockwell development. Not to besmirch Watertown, but going back 20, 25 years, I think it's been alluded to that Oconomowoc people drove through. It was sort of the far eastern gate of Watertown. 15 years ago, in this very room, I happened upon an urban planning symposium put on by John Norquist. And he emphasized energy, the energy that comes from making a city, not having wide roadways, but having buildings that are up on the road. And that's what this building is. You keep the energy focused on the sidewalks, on the green, and on the street. That's what makes people come to a city and stay in a city. The people that are proposing this building are local. They're not out of state, out of county. You have MSI Construction, Dirk Debink, who's been he and his family have been here forever. The vision, planning, taking input, seize this opportunity and approve this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Rodolfi.
I'm Lisa Rodolfi. I live at 215 East Pleasant in Fowler Lake Village, and that's, for full disclosure, that was my husband. So I love this community. It's amazing between the restaurants and the shops and the two lakes, and I'm fairly new to the community, only a couple years. But I have to say, just being here a couple years, I've seen the energy, I've seen the growth. And in Fowler Lake Village, which is a condominium complex, you all know. It's a beautiful complex, and it's a total different builder. I think there might be some crossover, but it's not the same builders. But they did an amazing job. And we do spend our money in this community. We come down from our little places, as Maureen said, and we go in and we shop, and we eat in your restaurants, and we pour a lot of money into it, and we pay our taxes. And that, to me, is very important. Rockwell Partners is just going to enhance the community. Its features with the new restaurants and the walkway and the boardwalk, the archway, the signs, it's a gorgeous building. And I can't imagine anyone not looking at this and saying, this is progress. And we need progress. We need to continue it. It's just a wonderful, wonderful build out. And I think whenever people see change, it's scary. A lot of times, for people, it's overwhelming. But this is progress, and it's enhancing our community, and I highly recommended that we take a look at this, and we know that Oconomowoc is becoming the place to be, and we want to continue to be the place to be. So I highly recommend you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jorlyn Dreyer. I'm not sure if I pronounced the first name right. Jorlyn, okay.
Well, good evening. I'm Jorlyn Dreyer. I'm an associate with Lancer Publications that's done the PR work and for the project. There's this handout that you all received earlier, and
Can you bring the microphone down to you a little bit there? Great, thank you.
absolutely. The handout that you received gives the details of the community outreach that we've done for Rockwell Partners that began more than a year ago. In all, there have been over 312 documented contacts with the City of Oconomowoc residents and the businesses, and about the initial and the refined development plans for the Rockwell site on Fowler Lake, which included 109 door-to-door visits to the homes, some multiple times to the same home when they had additional questions, 57 visits to the businesses, and we held 5 informational open houses. Now, the outreach has been comprehensive and honest. Our team has tried to be respectful of all the residents and business owners, and we have incorporated their suggestions to make this a better proposal for everyone. I'm confident then anyone who wants more information about this project can find out where to find it and contact us or the Rockwell people, because we remain available to you to get this information because we believe in it. And it has been an honor for us to work with Rockwell and MSI General, and hand in hand with everybody who has a stake in this. And on a personal note, I am born and raised in Oconomowoc. I moved away. However, within the year, maybe Maureen Stapleton can find me a place, as I look forward to coming back and then sharing in the excitement of a development like this.
Thank you. That's the last blue card I have on this part of the public hearing on the Rockwell development. Are there any other comments? Great. Yes, please. Thank you.
And
Let's come up to the microphone,
Yeah.
please. That's okay.
I'm really nervous. And so, okay, so my name is Linda Gilson, and I live at 412 North Lake Road here in the city of Oconomowoc. So in any case, the number, my husband gave me, like, he cannot be here because he coaches wrestling at Oconomowoc. In any case, so he gave me like 2 sheets to say to you, but I'm not going to. So the first one, because it's too long.
You do know this. This is live streamed.
In any case, all right, so I'll just read the first, which I really think is, I want everyone to know that we are acknowledge and appreciate that the project is going to be aesthetically and architecturally consistent with the historic nature of Oconomowoc. Okay, however, the size and scale of the development seems very out of place for this location. We're not anti-growth. We want our downtown businesses to thrive. We are in favor of redeveloping the space. But at the same time, we'd like to protect our small-time charm as well as, and this project clearly lacks, well, okay, so I'm gonna stop there. My concern is environmental impact of this, of changing the zoning, okay, of the zoning ordinance. The first one, there's 3 things that the developer wants: the shore yard change, the step back change, and then the vertical height change. Okay, there are 3 things that our city and everybody that we want, and that is the public bathroom, the parking, and the boardwalk. So my, the first one is the step backs. That's not gonna really affect that much, and environmentally. So typically with that, I'm not gonna say anything about it. The shore yard, from going from 45 feet to 0 feet, I am concerned for the environmental, impact that, or the negative environmental problems that may be occurring. Excuse me. So my first question we had asked was, has there been a site assessment? So a site assessment is what businesses, or in general, just not everything, but in general, what businesses were on that property, okay, and is there any potential for any environmental damage? So I ended up getting a little bit of information on the different businesses that were in that property. The, let's see, well, that was a different one. Okay, so the tank, okay, so in 1870, Hugo Laurelberg, he started his business in a hardware business over in the property. And then he put in a 662 barrel water tank in 1881. So it was on the tank is on the shore of Fowler Lake at the rear of the store. Okay, since then, the tank crashed, but he put another one in. Okay, so he put it in, and it became a foundry. All right,
So I'm just going to ask you to kind of wrap it up, please.
Okay, sure. In any case, since then, there's been a foundry, 2 dry cleaning businesses, some farm machinery, and a tin shop, fish taxidermy on that property. So my question is, like, if you go from 45 feet shore yard to 0, you potentially are, there is a potential for environmental problems, and I don't think that can be argued. Okay, so there was also, you know, on that back part.
And I apologize, but I need you to wrap up.
Okay.
You're well over a
All
minute
right.
longer than
Okay, thanks.
allotted.
In any case, there was a gas station in the back there, so if you allow this area to be developed, you're digging up whatever was in there. Could it be foundry sludge or any of that? So that's why I'm saying, leave it alone. I mean, don't do anything, don't pull up, because if something happens, I mean, typically, I am asking for an environmental site assessment, because we need to know if we're pulling anything, and I also.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you.
okay, all right, thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the audience? Anybody else have a blue card? If I could have your blue card, please. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, especially to the residents of Oconomowoc and the property owners, first and foremost, those who attend in the audience, and the council and city representatives. My name is Jane Owen. I choose not to give my address because we're not required to. You can do an open records request for it. To repeat some previous topics from the last couple weeks, the city was notified a year ago in July. They are required to come into compliance with state statute from 1996 to have a historic ordinance, and so far hasn't done it. To me, it looks like a gag order. A department was tasked to do it. It has not come before the council. The council didn't do any research, didn't bring it up, hasn't done anything in a year and a half. The buildings for the site were left all of summer 2021, not taken care of. The full winter, they were safe to use for fire training, and then all of a sudden this spring they're declared blighted. Looks a little odd. Traffic survey was in February. Don't know if school was in session at that time. Certainly wasn't peak for all the traffic events downtown, so doesn't seem to be equal to what we see day to day. No word yet or follow-up from anybody involved with the project on the testing for support structures, so it looks like it's going to be another Surfside, Florida, especially if it's built right up to the edge of the lake. And even though it was asked that it used to be able to be up to the lake for the setback, that doesn't mean it's right. It often flooded in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and it will continue to flood. Many condo owners tend to be a certain segment of the population, draining extra services when they're here and not supporting local businesses when they're not here. Even if they are shopping and eating in local businesses, it's not produced in the city of Oconomowoc by people who live in the city of Oconomowoc. So it's not money staying here. Nothing on the building is LEED standard, even though the head architect is LEED certified, so it's not environmental. Nothing is net zero, and nothing is carbon neutral. So we're spending the future now. It's not built with companies from the city of Oconomowoc, with employees from the city of Oconomowoc. Local is nice, it's not in the geographic city. I see it as knowingly, willingly, intentionally violating state law with noncompliance and blatant and flagrant disregard for the ordinances and the vow you took when you became representatives of this city to comply with the Constitution of the United States. And you are not willing to step up and do your job that you're paid for. Seems like the city bathrooms are self-fulfilling. If we sit there and patronize beverage and food establishments downtown, then what goes in has to come out. Those are the people who pay for it then. You supply the services, you choose to patronize those businesses, that's the facilities you use. Don't expect all the city residents to pay for your intake and your output.
I'd like you to wrap up, please.
Lastly, architecturally, it doesn't match the historic city of Oconomowoc from the 1850s, 60s, 70s. They are putting Cream City brick into concrete. The items above the windows are not called arches architecturally, nor per the Architecture Commission are they called eyebrows. It doesn't fit the city. What you're trying to do is grab at some tax base to pay off money you've already spent. I don't support your project.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments with regard to the Rockwell Building projects? I do not have any more blue cards. Want to thank everybody for sharing their comments and their inputs for the council. We'll close this part of the public hearing for the Rockwell Planned Development Overlay District open public hearing. We'll move on to our next public hearing. The next public hearing is for the 2023 City of Oconomowoc proposed budget. The purpose is to hear public comment on the proposed 2023 budget for the City of Oconomowoc. Ms. Sullivan Murray.
Thank you. Sneak peek, there's only 4 slides. All right, so tonight we're here after a lot of work by everyone involved, the staff, the department heads, the city council, the mayor, the city administrator, to bring you the 2023 City of Oconomowoc operating budgets. So when we get started with the budget, the first thing that we have to do is figure out, how much revenue do we have to cover the expenses for 2023? And one of the big things that we have to look at is the levy. That's a large part of our revenues. So by law, our revenues for levy are only allowed to increase by net new construction. Our net new construction this year was 2.34%, which accounts for about $250,000 of increased levy. So once we started putting the budget together, I kind of went through how we got to where we are here real quick, but I want you to know that this is a lot of work with all of these different sessions that we did. So when the departments put all of their proposals together and gave it to the city administrator and the mayor and I to take a look at, it was $212,550 over our levy limit. So in that first column are changes and reductions to the different departments that took place before the council even got the budget worksheets. Once we gave the council the budget, it was balanced, but it didn't meet the council priorities. So during the workshops, a council priority was to make sure that we had room in the budget for a full-time police officer. And they also didn't agree with one of the cuts that we had made earlier to our contingency budget and wanted to restore that to what it was in prior years. So in order to do that, council worked through the budget page by page to come up with additional reductions in department budgets to help make room for this. Other things that happened were we did get our health insurance numbers, and it was a savings of almost $56,000. And that helped us out quite a bit. Another thing that came up later between the budget workshops was an increase. We got our notice from the state. So our state aids did increase almost $53,000, almost $54,000 this year. So those 2 items helped in that goal for the council quite a bit. During the third workshop, we did add that extra full-time police officer in. We did add back to the contingency. And after everything was done, these are the net changes to each department and the net change, percent change to each department over last year's budget. At the end of our workshop on October 11th, the council voted 6-1 to move this budget forward, to publish it in the paper for a public hearing, and bring it tonight for adoption. What the 2023 operating budget does, I've said, adds that full-time officer, contingency is restored to its previous level, and it meets all state-required levy limits. The 2023 levy is $15,429,994, which does include the additional $2.2 million fire referendum that was voted on in August of 2022. The city-only portion of the budget, when we put together all of the budget and the equalized values and try to come up with mill rates, what we do is we take that whole levy amount and divide it by our equalized value. So if we look at last year's mill rate and this year's mill rate, the city-only portion and the increased values in the city reduced the mill rate by 34 cents. Now we add in the fire referendum, and as we knew when we voted on it, the fire referendum was going to add about 72 cents to the mill rate. Actually, I think when we talked about it, it was 81 cents. But after the value increases and changes, it's at 72 cents per thousand on the mill rate. So the final effect to the mill rate is an increase of about 38 cents per thousand over last year's mill rate. I'm going to take a look at that in a way that's easier to read. So we take a look at, this was prior year levy. This is the current year, or 2023 levy, city-only portion, and then with the fire referendum added in. The mill rate for last year was 471. It would be 437 with just the city part of the increase, and goes to 508 with what the fire referendum adds. So that adds 38 cents per thousand is the effect on the mill rate. Boy, I didn't have a whole lot more there for you, but tonight, what we're going to ask for you tonight is to approve the budget as amended by council in the workshops, and to approve the levy of $15,429,994. And I think that's all I have tonight, Mayor, until
Thank you
we
very
bring it
much.
up again.
I have 2 cards this evening with regard to this item of the public hearing, and so we'll go ahead and get started. Floss Whalen.
The planet is at risk. Democracy is at risk. The doomsday clock, which measures the time to man-made global catastrophe, is at 99 seconds to midnight. In the face of all those possible calamities, a small town's library seems of little significance. So why do we care so much? People were here several weeks ago. From 9-year-old Jordan to, if I can hang in there for 2 more months, 90-year-old me, with a lot of people of different ages in between. Why do we care? Because ever since ancient Egypt assembled 400,000 papyrus scrolls in Alexandria, libraries have been the hallmark of civilization. They are the portals to the facts we require, the truth we seek, the wisdom we need. It is no surprise that Confederate states made it a crime to teach a slave to read. Nothing is more liberating than being able to search freely for the truth. Our local history shows that past Oconomowoc citizens have treasured their library. Today's citizens are no different. We are asking only that you restore $35,000 to the library budget. This is a minuscule amount on a $15 million tax levy. It's about $3 on a $300,000 property. You obviously have room under the state-imposed levy limits to do so. The city budget as originally proposed to the council was already well under those levy limits, so much so that it makes me nervous. What future councils can levy depends mostly on what you budget today. We have had some real growth in the city, but that growth is not going to go on forever. This council has had the resources to do many of the things you desired, because previous councils understood this concept of not cheating the future, and they did not tie your hands. You cannot predict the future, but you can protect it, as your predecessors did. Your people are asking you to fund the library as initially proposed. It is a reasonable request. There is no budgetary reason not to honor it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Engstrand.
Hi, Brad Engstrand. I live at 538 East Grove Street. So we were just doing a little Watertown bashing a minute ago, and I always wondered why Watertown raided a Carnegie library, but Oconomowoc didn't. And I always figured it was probably the wealth that was supposedly here. Well, those guys really didn't leave us that much. We didn't even get a library out of it. I'm a little bit surprised at sort of bashing the library's budget. You know, I just came from, my son lives in Olathe, Kansas. He works for Garmin, and Garmin is a lot of you are familiar with their software and everything that they build. And they've really taken care of the community, and they realize that, you know, smart people are what build a community, not just bars and restaurants. And I wondered to myself, gee, we're going to build Rockwell, and then what do we have to do? Hire a policeman to watch the people that go and drink and eat at Rockwell? Why don't we have a library? His library that they just made in Olathe, Kansas, has a cafe in it. It has MakerBots. It has laser cutters. It has embroidery machines. It has a ton of this stuff. It's got a special teen area where the teens could go in and play games, big screen TVs, and the teens are there. They're in there in mass. They love it. Isn't that what a library is for? It's for the community. It's for people. And you guys are killing it. It's shameful. It really, really is. Outside, there's playground equipment. There's, they have places that have solar panels to charge your cars. They have all of these things in their library. It's a community. It's a center. It's a focus. It's something for the teens. And what do? Build more bars and restaurants for drunks so we can hire more police. Doesn't seem sensible. Yes, all the kids can sit at home on the internet, the information highway, and do all of these things and talk to each other and communicate around the world. But what do they really want? They want to be with their friends. We need to make that a reality in Oconomowoc. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments with regard to the library? If you want to come forward, please. Thank you. If anyone else has any cards, if you'd please give them to Mr. Gallo at this time, that would really help us move things forward. Thank you very much. Go
Hi,
ahead,
my
Kelly.
name is Kelly Moran. I live at 1483 Crystal Lake Drive in the city of Oconomowoc, and I'm here to appeal to you to please find that $32,000 that we need for the library. I love the library. I use it personally and I use it professionally. I work with adults with disabilities. The library has been a place where I can take my people and we can volunteer and we can learn all of the social skills that people need to work out in the community. There's not a lot of businesses that welcome us with open arms. The library has been fantastic. I have witnessed so many things at the library that if you cut this staff, we're going to lose the opportunity to feed our community the way that they have. One of the things I want you all to remember is the help desk. The people that work at the help desk aren't just checking out books. I have heard them recommend social services, doctors, psychologists, place to get free food. It's amazing to me. The library is so vibrant, and if you make that little library cut their budget, you don't know what all you're cutting. And there's a lot of people that go in there to read the newspapers that they can't afford to have delivered, the magazines that they can't afford to have delivered, and ladies in book clubs and men in book clubs that can't afford to buy the books. They rent the books. So there's so many reasons that we need the library. Please keep the library this vibrant, lovely spot. Find it in your heart to take that $32,000 from somewhere else that doesn't really need it, because our library really needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail Engstrom.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Abby Engstrand.
Lift the mic up. There you go.
I live at 538 East Grove Street with that guy. And I wanted to just say in support of the library and support of education, and that education, library, and the arts are, in my opinion, the best crime prevention. That's all.
Thank you. Jim Welch. Now, Jim, you only had, we're going to do 2, now you're doing 3.
Well, if there was 4, I'd probably.
You have the trifecta, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Jim Welch, 1130 Creekside Drive in Oconomowoc. And I wanted to echo what everyone else is saying, and I just came from the library, and anytime you go there day or night, it seems like any day of the week, there's a buzz there, and I think it's kids having fun, kids learning, adults, I don't know about the fun part, but learning. And it would be just a shame if they had to, cut down the hours or cut off staff. And I just don't see any scenario where cutting a budget doesn't do harm to this community.
Thank you very much. Without any further blue cards, we're going to go ahead and close this session of the public hearing for the.
No.
Please, in the future, if you can bring the cards up. You do this at every meeting. So next up, if you could please state your name.
Good evening, Jane Owen. That's my right to do it at what time I choose to speak, thank you. It's in general about the city budget. I don't mind paying you a very handsome penny. We need proof that we're getting what we pay for. Let's get some software, for example, what they had at Job Development Center in Waukesha County, to prove productivity. Minimum correct typing speed of 40 or 50 words a minute. Not just familiarity or proficiency, but highly skilled at Microsoft Office, 24/7, Chrome, Edge, Workshop. Let's see what's getting done all 8 hours of the day if you're working at your desk in City Hall. If council's in session, for example, giving yourself a day off in July with pay. This is not a PTO position where you sit here and not do compliance with state statute, but you give yourself a paid day off in July. It doesn't make sense. Prove to us we're getting what we're paying for. Then we'll talk budget numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further blue cards? Pippa Lingwright? I'm not sure if I said that right. Great, thank you.
I'm Pippa Lindright. I live at 342 West 3rd Street in Oconomowoc. And I budget myself. We are in budgeting process at church right now. It's super fun. And I understand coming together and trying to make this budget work, and I want to commend you for the work you have done. But as Betsy came and said, I can meet you halfway. You cut $50,000 from the library budget, and she made a miracle and said, we can do services with 25 less. The gap between that and what you have in this current budget is $10,000. And I beg you, please, please find that money. Don't cut the services, because cutting the services means cutting the revenue that they get. It means cutting the resources that they share, and it cuts something incredibly precious from this community. So please, they have met you halfway. Please meet them the rest of the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other blue cards? I don't want to jump the gun.
Going once?
With no further blue cards, the public hearing for the 2023 City of Oconomowoc proposed budget is now closed. We'll move on to our next agenda item. I'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for November 1st, 2022.
Second, Kavieski.
I didn't hear who made the first.
Oh, I did. So moved, Altman Cloth.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to any further comments or suggestions from citizens. This can be on any topic. Our previous 3 topics were focused on the public hearings. So if you have any other comment you'd like to make, again, I'd love to have it on a blue card. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
Everyone, I'll give you the card in a minute when I read off my notes. Again, my name is Jane Owen. This is in regards to public access to committees, minutes, audio recordings, overlap of meetings. For example, sometimes in this last 6 months, at least 3 meetings weren't given the standard Friday afternoon publication for the following week. Some as little as 24 to 48 hours notice. So if you weren't on a computer, you wouldn't be paying attention to a committee that's coming up very quickly. Some of the meetings are held at Northeast Regional Park, out at the baseball stadium, for folks who live in the downtown, for folks who don't drive, kids not old enough to drive yet, folks who gave up their car. It's very hard to access these meetings. Lack of consistency and lack of transparency. Sometimes meetings overlap. One person can't be in 2 spots at the same time. It should be public right, should be ordinance to protect public access, that the meetings cannot overlap. But we don't have anybody standing up for that. Transparency, those minutes need to be put out, and some aren't available from committees 4, 5, 6 years ago. Still asking for them, haven't gotten them yet. They're just a summary. They're not accurate, as forthright as they should be. It's downright a hassle to get some of this information. Sometimes all I get is, sorry I didn't call you back. One department head earlier this year didn't bother to call back at all after 2 phone calls. I'm not going to name names and get catty. It reflects on the person. It reflects on our city. We need to step up our game a lot to get to the starting line and look like the great city of Oconomowoc we all portend ourselves to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments for the council, again, on any topic? Yes, sir. And this would need to be on a different topic than
Yes, it's
public
just
hearing.
generally to the city. I'd like to
you.
congratulate the city.
Yeah.
Because
If
when
you
I,
could, excuse me, just state your name and address again.
Brad Engstrand, 538 East Grove Street. 22 years ago, when we were going to move here, my wife and I wondered where to go. We lived in Venice Beach, California, lived in Atlanta, I live in Phoenix, lived in downtown Chicago, Lincoln Park. We moved up here. I bought a business in Hartford. We decided not to live in Hartford because A, they didn't have a library. B, the only place to eat in town sold T-shirts that said, "Shut up and drink." So I'd like to congratulate Oconomowoc on a great job done. We moved here. Thank you.
Thank you. A T-shirt could have been worse. Any further comments? Okay, we are going to move on to consent agenda items. I'd entertain a motion for approval of the treasurer's report.
So moved. Second, Mulder.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that'll include all items, including treasurer's report and financials, correct? Okay, on to committee reports. Consider act on resolution 22-R3078, approving the 2022-2024 audit services contract. Ms. Sullivan Murray?
That was from what he just said.
You're gonna have a busy night.
Hopefully not.
All right, so our contract with Baker Tilly ends this year, so we put out an RFP for auditing services. We followed the city's qualifications-based evaluation for the RFPs that came in. We received 3. Inside your packet, you'll see the results and the ratings for this. So Baker Tilly came in first for technical points, and then again for cost overall. So, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. So with that, staff is recommending that the city authorize the 3-year contract with Baker Tilly for $123,000 with an option to renew for 2 years.
So this was brought to the committee prior to tonight's council meeting, as earlier tonight, and they went through all the different options. I'd like to ask any council members if you have any questions for Ms. Sullivan Murray. Alderman Rozak.
Hey, Lori. In the committee meeting, I asked a question about using the same auditing services for a long period of time. How long have we used Baker Tilly at this point?
5 years.
Okay, so with this and the addition, it'll be another 5 years,
Up to
right?
5 more years,
Okay.
yes.
And so my commentary, like Alderman Ellis talks about this a lot, is, have we used these people? Are they good? Obviously, we've used them. They're good. But also there's that familiarity and that sameness. I think for auditing service, at least in my head, at some point, what I think we should do is, in the next 5 years, we have 5 years to come up with a policy on when we change that auditing service. If it's for 2 years, and then they can rebid again, but I'd like to get different eyes on our TIFs.
Or you mean 2 contract periods? Yeah.
Correct, correct. Is, whether it's a contract period or just 2 years, I mean, I think we could just create a gap in there. But I don't want to be in a situation like we used to, and you mentioned at the other meeting, so this isn't from my own head, but our old auditing firm we used for 40 years, it's unacceptable for auditing. So I think you can't, if you use the same auditor over and over and over again, you're going to get the same audit over and over again. And that familiarity breeds corruption, I think, or can, because everyone becomes familiar and they just keep doing the same thing. So I'd like us to consider doing something maybe in the next year, 2, council decide on some policy on how we move forward with that at future auditing services.
I think the finance committee could probably take that up and bring a proposal, a proposed policy forward. We have taken a step forward by having the RFP,
Yes.
2 different times now. And I like that we did it again, because even though we're recommending Baker Tilly again, it does make them go back and give us a price that's competitive
Well,
with
there's
what
a lot
else
of
is
things
out
that
there.
over the years we hadn't bid on, inspection services, there's a lot of stuff that we've fixed over the years, and
Yeah.
this is one of them, so I
This is
appreciate your
one of
work
them.
on it.
Yeah.
Not
Alderman
letting the
Spiegelberg?
the same group.
And we did talk about this in committee, that maybe at the point Baker Tilly, once we're out to 10 years, I understand what you're saying. 2 years, I wouldn't agree to. They barely get up and going with 2 years, and,
No, I
and
meant a
then,
2-year gap after 10 years.
oh, the 2-year gap,
A
okay.
2-year gap after 10 years.
Okay, because I
and
was
then
going
you
to say,
can
if
go
you're
back.
taking it down to a 2-year contract, you're not going to have a lot of good firms that will bid on that. The other thing is, I think I understand what you're saying, but I think you need to be careful with saying that the process after that length of time can potentially breed corruption. It doesn't. And if you want to talk about what the audit process really is and how these partners are truly responsible and accountable for what they're doing, talk to me or Lori, because I think there's some other insight we can give you into the process of these audits, so.
Alderman Ellis.
Although I still agree with you that, add about that 10-year part, but I don't think we should be saying it's because of potential corruption, so.
No, I don't think that Matt was actually referring to corruption. I think that was just the word that came to his mind at the time. I think it's more complacency. Because what happens here is when we have a firm for a very long time, after a while, it's just the same pair of shoes. And it's not that it's bad, but it's really good to every so often have a new, fresh pair of eyes looking at the situation. Not to say that we would go with them, but it also keeps that in this case, the auditors sharp, so that they understand that they have to always have a sharp pair, a new pair of eyes to make sure that they're doing the right thing for the city. I think that's what he was trying to say.
Thank you, Kevin.
Any other comments
You're
or
welcome.
questions for Lori? Alderman Spiegelberg.
I just want to take exception a little bit to what you guys have been saying, but we can talk about this later, because the staff on these audits is changing every year to 2 years, so we're constantly getting fresh eyes on our audit. We may have the same partner, but the staff that they're putting on these audits, they're new eyes every year to 2 years, because the rest of the staff are moving up to senior positions or managerial positions. I mean, I'd like to have the conversation, but I just want some understanding, too, that, we're in really good shape with Baker Tilly for these 10 years. If we want to go in some other direction, that's great, but I don't want to diss them in the process,
Alderman Rozak.
The point wasn't to diss them. The point was to create, like we've done with RFP processes for city projects and construction projects, inspection services, is create that process to control it. Prior to what Lori started here, which is doing the RFP for this, we had the same firm for 40 years. Let's presume they billed $100,000 a year. We paid one firm $4 million to audit us for 40 years. That does breed complacency. There may be some change of staff, but it's the same company over and over again, looking at the same books, working with the same city staff. So corruption may have been the wrong word. I think Kevin corrected me properly to say complacency. And that's what we tried to avoid with our RFP changes years ago, and that's why I think we should look at this policy and what we do. Again, it was a 2-year gap after 10 years. And you change auditing firms, they can come back and rebid. I think the RFP bidding we have done, what we put in place 5 years ago, perfect, genius, because we actually have people bidding for that project. And we had, these guys were within a few points from each other and like $3,000. So that process is obviously working, and we've got quality firms bidding, so.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
Rozak, so moved.
Second, Ellis.
Any further discussions or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Under our next item, consider act on Resolution 22-R3075 for wastewater treatment rate adjustment. Ms. Sullivan Murray.
I know, I'm going to be coming back up here a lot, but that's
We
okay.
just get you a chair, one of those little like barber shop chairs.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about this at Utility Committee and at Committee of the Whole already, but the wastewater rate change for 2023 is going to be about 7.5%. That amounts to a rate change of about $2.05, or a little over $24 a year. The 7.5%, I say, we change the wastewater utility rates generally every year, about 3%, or a little more than 3%. But this year, the 7.5 really reflects us skipping a year because of the large water rate increase that we had. So this is a 7.5% rate increase. All of the rate structure and tables are in your packet. This needs to be voted on by council. This does not go to the PSC. This is a council rate change.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussions?
Douglas, and then me.
Any further discussions or comments? And again, for the audience, they've worked a lot on this. This is not a quick, hey, we're going to increase your rates. This has to be done. Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Yep. Aye.
Next item, consider act on the adoption of the 2023 utility budgets.
Right. Again, the utility budgets went through thorough review by the Utility Committee and the Committee of the Whole. Their summary is on the screen here. So what you see is the rate of return for the water and the electric are both decreasing right now. We did have a water rate increase last year, and there's another part of that increase that's coming, but not until well number 8 is finished, which we project will probably be the end of 2024. For the electric utility, we currently have a rate application in. We expect there to be a rate increase mid-year in 2023. That's about a 5% increase. There'll be more information on that once the PSC goes through the application and makes their recommendation. For the wastewater, you can see the rate of return. We actually have a very small negative rate of return for the wastewater in 2023. With the rate increase that we're doing, we don't expect that to continue. But for the wastewater, the main reason why that is high right now is because of the delayed increase that we had last year and because of the large amount of capital projects that they have going on. The wastewater, however, sits in a very good financial position, and we can do this for a year.
One comment for the audience, again, I'm not sure if you've heard it published, but We Energies is increasing their rates considerably higher than what we are doing here in the city.
That's right.
Plus, you already get about a 25% lower rate than our competitive electric utilities. So it's actually a real gem of Oconomowoc, something a lot of people don't know. So that rate increase, as is posted here, is really, really small. Plus, 85% of our infrastructure and our main cabling is underground. How many times do you really get, do you have power outage? Very few in the city of Oconomowoc. So I'd like to ask for any questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan Murray. Sorry.
That's
Larry.
okay.
Well, I'll just be a
Alderman
brief-
Rozak?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we have to do rate increases across the board for some of these items is to create that rate of return so that we can put money in reserves, so we can do the large projects, whether it's the new digester cover for wastewater or it's burying more underground cable, putting in transformers. Those things have to be done, and if we don't do those things and we don't save for that ahead of time, will actually be backwards. So these rates have to go up periodically to make sense.
That's correct.
Thank you for the comments, Mayor. You're spot on. The underground.
right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the underground cables is why we don't have the power outage. You see power outages in other areas, and we just don't have as many because we've been working for a decade to bury as many lines as we can.
And that's pretty incredible and something I didn't know several years ago, and please share with your friends. Alderman Ellis.
Yeah, I was going to say that over the last several weeks, I know that there's been places very close that have had power outages for not just 1 or 2 hours, but like 6 or 7 hours while I'm watching my television. So, yeah, it's a good thing. Working out, working out.
There you
Right,
go. There you go.
Exactly.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So move, Kavieski.
Rozak, second.
Any further discussions or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
On to Plan Commission items. Consider act on the certified survey map for the land combination for the Rockwell Development Project located at 121 to 135 and part of 111 North Main Street. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you. We talked about the certified survey map a little bit earlier in the public hearing presentation, but it is to combine 4 lots plus part of the Village Green into 1 lot. That's really the purpose of this document. The applicant is Rockwell Development. They are the owner of 0.37 acres, and the city is the owner of 0.25 acres. And we've heard about that. Someone spoke at the public hearing asking, what's the compensation, et cetera. But please remember that that land that is being incorporated into the project is going to be remaining public. It's the public parking lot portion. So yes, it is being incorporated. They need the land underneath it for the underground parking, but the land on top is going to be a public easement that would be drafted. So if this is acted on favorably, one of the conditions of a CSM, usually we don't have many conditions on a CSM document, would be though that parking lot easement must be approved by the Common Council prior to the recording. You also must approve the transfer of the property because obviously they don't own this, so it would not get signed and recorded unless you guys act on the transfer of the property as well as the easement.
Alderman Ellis.
Okay, first question I have is.
Can you bring the microphone a little closer, please?
Oh, wow, somebody actually asked me this. Okay. It's snowing pretty good out there right now. All right, my question here is this. Back years ago, how close did those buildings that were on the 4 corners, that before the Village Green and things on those lines, come as far as close to the water's edge? Because I saw that on the one diagram that we had some light poles that were in the water. So help me understand that. I've got a few questions.
You're right, there was light poles actually in the water, and there was a boardwalk that went cantilevered over the water, and those would be a 0 setback. As far as buildings themselves, those buildings out there now, I would say they would be less than the 45-foot setback that we have on the books right now. The buildings that were on the Village Green, there was an old hotel on the village. I don't know the answer to that. That predates me, but now today we have a 45-foot setback, but there are some buildings that are existing that are less than 45 feet, and we have this parcel that is in question is under the jurisdiction of the city. It was in the city prior to 1982. The DNR has no regulations. They have land disturbance permits and things like that. And the DNR would get involved in the shoreland restoration and the piers. But the building setback is a city local jurisdiction. So we control the setback on this property.
I just find it quite interesting that there's some poles light poles that are already in the water there, which tells me that at some point, we had that 0 setback. And then somewhere in that area, in that time span between now and then, we made some decisions. My other question is, I won't answer it yet. I'll let anybody else talk.
Okay. Next up is Alderman Kavieski and then Alderman Douglas.
You got the right slide up then, so thank you. We talked about the surface lot with easement for city parking associated with that. The terms of this will require the further agreement of that easement with the CSM. Words matter, reduction of green space, whatever, has been discussed previously. It's not a reduction of green space in actuality, right? Because there were slides provided that the actual green space itself is actually expanded with a rework of the Village Green area. The 18 feet of lot space on the surface could have remained green, could have been turfed, but we recommended to increase the amount of parking there. So we had options. And the concern for the additional activity and just parking in general on North Main Street isn't going to be fixed with this, but it's going to be helped with this as a result of that increased parking. So I just want the public to know and understand and realize that this is not a developer that's forcing something on us. This is not giving away something that we had for nothing in return. We are retaining the parking. We are retaining the rights to that. As a city, we'll be able to regulate that parking in length of time for those slots. Those become inventory for our citizens, guests, and to support not only the businesses there, but the events that occur on the Village Green. I know there is some concern about what would happen with the German Christmas market. The German Christmas market will remain at the Village Green. These enhancements may actually help to facilitate additional growth and reconfiguration opportunities associated with that. And I think one of the reasons this development is going there is because of that vibrant, event-driven corner. So all of those things, I just want to make sure the public realizes as we work through this process that it's been thought about, discussed, and it's been a good public-private partnership, not a developer-driven mandate.
Alderman Douglas.
It's interesting to say words matter. You're talking about an increase of green space. However, that's basically by taking out sidewalks. We could do that anyways, and the green space would be more than what they're proposing. Ultimately, the reason why we have to do this, if I understand correctly, is because they need underground parking. If they don't have that much underground parking, they're not going to meet requirements for their building they're proposing. So ultimately, because of their design, building that they want to place there, is what's causing that additional parking and the loss of space to the Village Green.
As a point of order, item 9A is actually about just the recombination of the lots and the
Correct. The lot.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose.
It's okay.
Nice try. Nice try.
Well, no, I felt like we were getting into like this development plan, which is kind of really the next big piece
Right.
of it.
This is just a certified survey map, and I think we're still staying focused enough. Any other comments or questions with regard to this? Alderman Shellpepper.
Statement, I'm going to vote against the land combination. I don't, the city currently owns that parking lot. Under the agreement, we will no longer own the parking lot. That's all I need to know, and that's why I'm not going to support it. And I also don't support the reduction of green space, regardless of how we want to frame it and, you know, sugarcoat it. So I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Alderman Ellis. Again, we're focused on the certified survey map.
So I guess my concern is with the parking. Should I wait until we go to the next B, or should I? It's
The
only
parking lot
question-
is incorporated into the certified survey map.
Yes, it is.
So I think if you have a comment with regard to
Yes.
parking, now is the appropriate time.
All right, thank you. So my concern is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take some green space away, and we're going to put 11 parking spaces, of which one of them really is not usable. However, there are ways in which you can kind of finagle it so that all 11 can be used. It's my understanding that in the case of major events, such as the German Christmas party, the German Christmas.
It's a party.
And it's a party, and the other Maxwell Street days and things on those lines, that lot is going to be closed, which thus means that there will be no parking there. I don't think that those 11 spots are really going to do, or we're taking a little Band-Aid and we're putting on a gaping hole. I think that it's a bigger issue that needs to be resolved, and resolved by this body outside of this project. Now, I had a conversation with one of the individuals who called me, and I did ask them, I said, if we decide not to have that additional parking, is that a deal breaker? And their answer to me was, no, it is not. So I'm really having guys, we really have to sit down and finally just say, the biggest problem we have is not putting up buildings. It's finding parking spaces for these people who want to come into Oconomowoc to enjoy the things at which we have here. And so I think that we need to really consider on whether or not we should, am I on 3 minutes? Is that what it is?
No, I just want to
Okay.
keep us focused on
I'm
this
focused.
topic.
I'm focused.
I think your point's well taken. I think we all agree we'll want more
think,
parking.
can I finish?
Sure.
Thank you. I think that we really need to consider whether or not we really need those 11 spots. Thank you.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
I feel like I might get in trouble for going off topic, but I think on the day-to-day, the 11 extra spots are going to be a huge value to the city. And that lot right now, regardless, we don't use that lot for, when we do have bigger events, that lot is gone. So that's not changing. Yeah, that's it. I lost my train of thought.
Alderman Kavieski.
So this is a legal question. With the easement associated with the surface lot to the city, there are rights to that, correct? We're not losing complete ownership of that. We have,
It will not be an easement. It
Okay.
will be a lease.
okay,
A 99-year lease that for all intents and purposes, we will own it. Hello.
Oh, there he is.
So we will essentially be the owner of that property for 99 years. We'll have complete control over it. Unlike the other lease we have in that regard, I understand that we'll actually probably be plowing it as well and maintaining, the surface, obviously, completely. We have complete control over it. So no difference for 99 years whether it is actually owned by somebody else. We will have complete control over it.
okay. So that was one part. The other part was in regards to the requirement that the development has for the underground parking. Part of what we've gone through in discussions was why the building is the size that it is. And part of the reason that is for the increment to support the public infrastructure elements, which is all the stuff that we talked about, right? So if we don't want and everybody's got a different side to that, right? If you don't want the the finish of the boardwalk, if you don't want the bathroom, if you don't want the rework of the village green, if you don't want any of that stuff, then they could go ahead and build what they want in the space that they have without the sizing. But if we want those elements, that increment needs to be there, which is why the parking is required associated with the underground side of it.
Alderman Altman-Cloth, sorry.
So going off of what Alderman Ellis said about asking the developer if we had to do the extra parking lot, and I just asked Ellis this, not that I expected him to have the answer, so I don't know if this is a Mr. Screamer or Mr. Gallo question, but hypothetically, if we got rid of, slots 8 through 21, that becomes green space. We go back to green space. So now we have to reconfigure the in and out on Main Street. Then wouldn't we have to push the driveway closer to the building, which then makes that less safe? Than like the sight lines with the sidewalk?
Can somebody answer that for us,
It would put the
please?
driveway where it currently is, approximately.
Well, no, because Alderman Ellis asked the developer, do we have to have that? Like, so couldn't that go back to village green space, which then would change where the driveway is, which would then make it less safe?
Jason, can you go back to the slide that shows the overlay of the existing parking lot? Okay, so in this drawing, the lighted shaded areas with the curb and the bump out, that's the existing parking lot right now. And then what you see is being added is from the line that Jason's showing now to the sidewalk.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, so if we're not getting that space, then we'd essentially be going back to approximately what's there now.
So the driveway would-
Commissioner, or Alderman Douglas, sorry.
Jason, where does the city property actually end? Is that current lot there public now, or is it owned by Rockwell?
The city property ends right at the building, right up here.
Actually-
We own the alleyway and the parking lot. So the alleyway is kind of like right through here. And then this is the lot. So the city owns, this is a quarter of an acre. And we own all of this.
But not I'm proposing this, but technically we could move that entire lot and take it out and make it all green space. I'm not proposing that, but I'm saying that we'd have the right to do that.
Well,
The issue too is the underground parking. If you want the underground parking, you're not going to have having green space on
I'm
top
just
of
trying to figure out how far we actually own. So it's actually right up to the building.
the blue area.
So if I hear this right, the underground parking is associated with what we're doing up above ground. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, this picture is a nice illustration of that.
Oh, yeah, look, okay.
A second. Alderman Spiegelberg?
Well, it's kind of a clarification of that. So if we did not give them all of this extra parking or space, would that prevent them from doing the underground parking?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Then I'm probably going to be voting against this just because I've always been an advocate for so many people out there who have said, why can't they get this project done with 4 stories? Now we're at 69 and a half, and we're at another at least 10 feet above with mechanicals. So my voice is going to be for the many, many, many people who have said, we love this project, it's fantastic, but we don't like seeing it at the mass that it's at. So I'll be voting against the CSM.
Yeah, and so let's again, folks, we're working right now on the CSM.
Right.
So great comments and stuff, but let's try to keep focus there.
But this-
Alderman Rozak?
But this can,
Yeah,
this
I mean,
hinges on that, this is part of that.
yeah, I think it is. I mean, the CSM is going to combine these lots and allow them to put the underground parking. I think where we've been talking around is where the extra row of cars is could go back to green space. It doesn't have to be that extra row of parking. I don't think that's the smart idea. I think we should create parking. If we're putting a restaurant and we're putting a bakery or deli there, it doesn't make sense to not take the opportunity to add a little additional parking with about 19 feet of space. We've got sidewalk there already, we've got parking there already. So that's why I'm in favor of it. I think one of the one of the things we go back to on creating the CSMs here tonight and combining them and then working on the planned overlay is we've worked with this developer for been a year, 8 months on the look, on the feel, on what we need, what we want, and this is kind of where we're at. And I think at this point, it would be tough for us to say, I mean, we can say no if we want to, but then what developer moving forward is gonna come in and spend a year working with us, coming to 15 meetings, creating these proposals, creating these designs, just to have kind of at the last minute, us pull the plug. So, you know, we could have said we don't want green space 4 months ago, or the parking. You know, we could have said we don't want, you know, anything associated with this 4 months ago, and we haven't done that. I think they'd probably still do the project if we turn those parking spots into green space, so that's, you know, we gotta decide that, but I don't know that that decision is with regard to the CSM. So,
Alderman Mulder?
I am ultimately in favor of this, and I am in favor of the land combination. I do believe, as I've stated before, that this is a difficult area to build on for many of the reasons that have been discussed, and so that's why the mass of the building is there, which then requires the parking underneath because of the mass of the building for the entire thing to be profitable for the developer. Right now, within, and without a project like this, a building could go up there, up to 50 feet, so it could be 3 stories. It could abide by all the setbacks, and we could end up with what is largely, well, somewhat an unfunctional green space right now with the large retaining ponds in it, continue to have no boardwalk with lights in the middle of our lake. And so, for me, I would agree, Karen, that I would prefer to see it lower. But it makes sense to me why it has to be this size. And I do think that, to your point, Matt, if this isn't the kind of project we want, then those kind of amenities are not going to be something that we're ever going to be able to put in. I respect your comment that the city could get it done. The boardwalk alone is $1 million. It's never going to get done unless it's part of a TIF district. That's just the simple truth of it. Our levy is never going to support that. We're not going to take $1 million out of our reserves to put in 100 feet of boardwalk. So this is the way to get these things done, and there's a trade-off, there's no doubt about it, and I've heard from lots of constituents, but I think it's the right project.
Alderman Kavieski?
Kind of along that line, Alderman Mulder, the boardwalk that is there right now was as a result of Fowler Lake Village TIF, as well as the OAF and the GMF grant monies, and the city did kick in some money, but without those dollars, that boardwalk doesn't exist. And I have not met one person that doesn't love that boardwalk. And I have not met one person that doesn't agree that without that boardwalk, the downtown isn't what it is today. So the completion of that boardwalk and the vision, if you take a look at, you know, the walkability from City Beach across the street into the boardwalk and down Pleasant, that's all part of that master plan that becomes real. Nothing in the city happens overnight. It all takes a long time. And we're moving down that path. And I think it's notable for that. The other thing with the parking, we have worked as a council for years to increase the parking on North Main. We've taken the loading zone area and made it a loading zone until 4 p.m. and then you get 2 additional spots. We took the turnaround and put an additional, I don't know.
3?
3?
I'm thinking 3.
3 what?
Spots.
3 spots.
Taking away the turnaround.
That was, no, I think that was like 8. If you take a look at both sides. And that was controversial. Everybody's like, why would you take her on? You know, nobody's lost their mind. Everybody figures out how to turn around if they want to. They use that parking lot. And those additional parking spaces are being used by those who are now going to the retail and to Fresh Baked. And this will help with that. And that's how we get down the road. We incrementally take the spots that make sense and that help to utilize that area as the heart of our downtown, and the heart of Lake Country. So
I'd like to entertain a motion.
We have one more
Motion to
question,
approve.
Mayor, before we make a motion.
Second.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm sorry, there was a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderman Shell Pepper made a comment first.
Yeah, just the question is, the land that the developer will be buying from this, or the land that currently the city owns that will be under lease to the developer, will that count towards their state formula for boat slips? So will they own that land to a point where they'll be able to add more boat slips because of that land portion? that
I
they have?
believe that they've already worked out with the DNR their authorized number of slips without that land being included. Is that true?
I got 3 slips. Yeah.
Yeah, John, if you want to come up. If you could please identify your name and company for the record.
Sure. John Coots with MSI General, P.O. Box 7, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Regarding the boat slips that is governed by Chapter 30, that's a DNR individual permit application. We've had 2 meetings with the DNR to answer the specific question. It's a calculation based on shoreland that is owned by any property owner. So if the land if the CSM is approved as shown, the calculations would be based off of 173 feet, which is the meander line that is shown on the CSM as presented tonight. So that would be the,
So you're saying it's going to be more than what you've had conversations with about the DNR?
the conversations with the DNR have been, there's a calculation that's based on the length of shoreland.
What was the
So
calculation you were working off of?
The calculation we were working off previously with the 6 boat slips that are shown was a shorter calculation than what is currently shown. So I believe the
Okay.
current
So
calculation.
how come you guys weren't transparent about that? You knew you were going to want to take that land, that public parking piece. Why weren't you clear up front that you actually are going to have 8, not 6 slips then?
No, I don't think it was a matter of being transparent. It was a matter of reflecting the way that this was being put together as far as if it was going to be a transfer or an easement. So there was further clarification that was requested to look at, and I believe that there is an opportunity with 173 feet, if you look at the calculations, that there could be up to 8 slips if it was approved by the DNR. That all has to go through the Chapter 30 permit process.
So in that situation, there'd be 6 slips for you, the owner, and then 2 for the owner, and then 2 for the city, public spaces? Is that correct?
I would have to defer to the developer on that, but I believe that was, yeah.
But so instead of 4 for you, it would be 6 and 2 for the public, correct?
That could be. The boat slips were left out of the TIF calculations. That was not a part of the boardwalk. So that was always, from the beginning, part of the developer-funded part of the project. And the DNR has said all of that would have to go through their permit process. None of that has been started yet. It's just been.
Right, but the reason you're getting it is because of city land.
I could see your point on
Yeah,
that. Sure. I understand what you're asking that question. Yep.
I just, I wanted to point that out because, and obviously it's not going to change most people's minds here, but it's just another situation of, there's always more information. There's more things that come to light. There's extenuating circumstances. Here's another one. We're going to have an extra 2 boat slips that we weren't planning on. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Kavieski.
Before you sit down, does this reflect the additional 2 slips?
We haven't shown any of the extra boat slips on any of the proposals. Again, none of that's been,
It's not been approved by the DNR, nor has it been.
none of that's even been started.
But it's a
No.
state formula.
It's a,
It-
it's
it-
a formula that's in their Chapter 30 permit regulations. Yes.
So I guess I appreciate you bringing this up. I think it's worthwhile in discussion as it applies to the CSM. If you were to choose to extend that pier out and get the additional slips that could be entitled to you with the additional shoreline, is there part of that formula in Chapter 30 that dictates how far you can go into the body of water with the pier that may limit that? off the top of your head?
Yeah, our understanding, again, with comments with the DNR, is that all individual piers on all bodies of water in the state of Wisconsin go through the same permit process. As far as length into the water, I couldn't speak to that. Honestly, I don't know. I'd have to get the DNR involved. They've just given us the feedback for this particular project. There are two types of pier permits that can be approved. One is an individual pier permit. The other is a fishing pier permit. And so those are the two piers that have been shown.
So I just, again, there's, doesn't sound like there's any ulterior motive or anything that's behind the closed door, and you're like, okay, now we can do this. You don't even have those answers. If it comes about, it comes about, but I do think there's some regulation in regards to how far you can go into a body of water with a particular pier, and there's nowhere on here, because of the boardwalk that I see, that you could add 2 slips off the boardwalk outside of that. So if they're like, oh, you can't go out any further, that conversation is done. And that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, the location of the boat slips that has been shown has been in compliance with setbacks and other calculations that the DNR takes into account as far as where you can place it. You know, you can't encroach on a neighboring property to some extent, so. But
We have a
again, all
99-year
that process
lease.
would all have to happen still
Yeah,
with the DNR.
and we have a 99-year lease on a property that we then control, and the boardwalk is owned by the city. So if you were gonna try to come off of the boardwalk anywhere else with additional slips, that would be a no-go.
Boardwalk will not be owned by the city.
No?
It will be a pedestrian easement.
Okay, but it would require our approval?
The boardwalk will be built in, under the terms of the developer's, the TID agreement, and there will be a perpetual easement for the public to traverse it.
Any further questions? Comments? Like to entertain a motion?
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further comments or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
On to our next item. Next item is consider act on ordinance 22-01041 to create a planned development overlay district for the Rockwell development located at 121 to 135 North Main Street. Mr. Gallo.
I won't have many comments. The last item created the site. We held a public hearing. We had several speakers for and several against this project. This does create the planned development flexibility for the project, the zoning exemptions, and in return, you're getting the public benefits. The Plan Commission and our Architectural Commission both already acted on this. The architecture's been approved, and the site plan was approved by the Plan Commission, contingent upon getting approvals of the zoning by this body. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to open it up for discussion. Alderman Kavieski.
Real quick, with the TIF is attached to this portion of the approval, correct? Or no?
No.
No, the TIF was acted on the project plan by the Plan Commission, but there's a 30-day window, so that's going to come back before you in December.
Okay.
December.
This is an ordinance and that you're acting on this item, and this does require 2 readings unless the first one's waived or second one's waived.
Alderman Douglas.
Miguel, can you go to the slide that talks about the terrace stuff on top of the building? The different heights of where they're going to be located? So the height structure for the, I don't know if you call it teal, green, is 14.4. But the height of the building is 69.6, right? So that makes it 84, but in our paperwork, it says a height of 80.
That tip
There's-
is higher than where it's
I
built
think
at
it's how
now.
were they measuring that 14.4? There's a parapet, so the roof is actually, what is it, 266. So there's a little bit of confusion there. But the top of the elevator shaft is a total is 80 feet. 4 inches.
Continue. Continue to,
Oh, are you done?
It's a totally separate topic, but it's, you can go.
Wasn't the elevator shaft, didn't Western Lakes have something to do with that?
Well, I know
I
an
had heard that
elevator
somewhere.
is required for this type of construction, and the elevator does exit on the top floor, and then there's stuff that has to go above the elevator, so this is all,
I guess what I'm getting at is the height of that is kind of out of the developer and MSI's control, and that
Right.
was more,
there's building codes that have to have certain number of elevators, and that there is a requirement to have an elevator once you get at this level.
I go to Alderman Kavieski and then back over here.
This is very similar, and we've covered this before, but it's worth covering again, I think. This is very similar to Fowler Lake Village in regards to its height and then mechanicals associated with that. I think it's about the same height from the roof line to the mechanicals in both situations. So if somebody's trying to get a visual sense of what that means and what that looks like as they're walking down the street, it's about the same.
Yes, it's similar. They have terraces and elevator shafts and other apparatuses on top of their roof that protrude higher up.
Approximately same heights, approximately, within inches, kind of.
Alderman Rozak?
That was actually kind of my question. I think Fowler Lake Village's mechanicals on that tops out around 79 feet, so it's pretty close to where they're at here. With Fowler Lake Village, Fowler Lake Village was built after we did, I believe, the new downtown overlay, correct?
Yes.
And they don't have, when I look at Fowler Lake Village, I don't see a 10-foot setback, the step back at the third floor. It looks similar, what they've done to what they're asking for, I guess. Do we
Right,
give them
the-
exemptions too on some of that?
No, the Fowler Lake Village is not a PD. And that was actually in the works before we adopted the
Okay,
code.
that's why. But they kind of opted to do that third or fourth floor. They kind of did step it back so that they could be
We were
patios.
addressing the ordinance at the same time that they were coming forward, and we determined it was kind of in the spirit of what we were drafting, but did we review it specifically for the standards? No. It was actually predates that ordinance.
I'm sorry. The common council does have the ability to give variances for the shoreline setbacks as well, correct? I mean, we have that ability to do for projects, correct?
Well, it's not a variance, it's an exemption from the code.
I mean, I was here on council when we drafted a lot of the downtown overlay that we're talking about with the step backs. The reason for drafting it the way we did was because of the complaints about the Worthington building being right on the sidewalk, no architectural, relief straight up and down for 3 or 4 or 5 stories. I don't think that when we pass these type of ordinances that we should be so rigid as to believe there should be no flexibility ever when you're looking at these type of ordinances. Certainly the height is higher than some people would like, but whether it's the step back or it's the height, if we're getting a variety of public amenities, we shouldn't be so inflexible as to say we can never, ever, give an exemption to those things. I think what they've tried to do here is meet the spirit of that regulation. Is it exact? No, it's not. Neither Fowler Lake Village wouldn't have fallen into those overlay. A lot of the buildings downtown wouldn't, and we gave exemptions for some of the other buildings as well, so.
Alderman Douglas?
Talking about step backs, I know you said the architectural committee basically said they're in the spirit of the ordinance by their canopies and overhangs. What did they say about the lakeside being 3 stories straight up with no step back, no awnings over top? Did they address that?
They were very complimentary of the architecture, and they said this is something they feel was in the spirit of the code. I don't recall the exact verbiage that they said, but they really thought this was a well-designed building.
I guess to Alderman Rozik's point, you know, talking about not being rigid, I would go on the other side and say we're not being rigid enough, considering I don't know what zoning ordinance they're actually following besides the 0 setback from the street. So,
Alderman Kavieski.
There was some discussion or concern about environmental impact on this with the Village Green and with this particular property being developed. I would, my thought based on previous discussion, and I'd like either confirmation or further input, with the cleanup of this site, it's actually an improvement for the environmental impact, because now you're meeting all current requirements for EPA and all the other fun stuff, and if there is any contaminants in that property that is being developed, is being removed. Those are all good things, I believe. Am I interpreting that correctly, that the development of this site, if there are any challenges associated with it, will ultimately leave this community with a better property?
I can speak to two responsibilities we would have as the general contractor. We've got a responsibility to the Wisconsin DNR to treat all stormwater in relation to Fowler Lake. The 2017 Boardwalk project, for example, greatly improved the treatment of water that was previously running almost directly into the lake from the parking lot. This site currently is in the same sort of orientation where runoff from the city parking lot and the privately owned parking lots run right into Fowler Lake. That will no longer be allowed. It will all be treated. I believe there's empirical data that there was significant water quality improvements when the boardwalk was completed in 2017. This would follow that. So in relation to the water and the site, there's DNR governed regulations that would need to be followed. In regards to the site itself and some of the comments that have been made tonight, there was a phase 1 environmental study done by the current developer. As any project progresses, if you encounter things as you dig, there are, again, state regulated requirements and processes that have to be followed by any general contractor, and especially by us. So we recognize all of those challenges in this project and are committed to following the right regulations and processes that are already in place. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically, but we do recognize we've got a water environmental impact that we need to follow, and there's also a site development impact that will need to be followed during the process.
I think you did address both, and you mentioned 2017 Village Green when Bongs came down and that green space was ultimately opened up to the event space that we know it today and enjoy it today. That maybe Mr. Duffy would know more specifically. But I don't think the Village Green it was graded, but it wasn't envisioned and completed to the tune of what we're looking to do now and actually completing the Village Green through planning. Is that fair?
Part to what you see there today, there actually used to be a 1947 easement, which actually connected the parking lot that we have today to the access point that is adjacent to the former AJ's. We did not own the lakefront of Fowler Lake. So as we've moved through redevelopment in downtown and have acquired property through the development of the Worthington and all sorts of other things that have happened here in the community to implement our downtown plan, we have gained water frontage in the city and added that green space.
So we now have, with this project, we'll have greater access to the lake as a result of this, with the boardwalk being completed.
It's been our goal from the 2004 downtown plan to extend the boardwalk or connection pedestrian from behind City Hall all the way to City Beach. And we're fairly close.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
You can go to Rozek.
Alderman Rozak.
Oh boy. I think I'm ready. Yeah, I am. Just a few points. One, and this is on page 78 of our packet. This building does meet our city's comprehensive land use plan from 2050,
And while it's true that it could be mixed use, whether it was 4 stories or 5 stories, as Mr. Douglas said to me, whispered in my ear, importantly, you know, during the debate, when the developer was talking to us about what this vision could look like, what this could be, we asked them at length, probably 15 different times, can you do the public improvements? Can you do the look? Can you do everything that we want done and the tax benefit and everything else at 4 stories? And they said unequivocally no. So like Matt Mulder said, you know, there's got to be a little bit of compromise in there. The other things we're doing here, and there were some comments about it, so I think we should address it. There won't be flooding there because there was a plan that came up about the extra fill. So they're gonna stop the flooding. The environmental runoff is gonna be fixed. And at the end of the day, I think this is gonna be a good project for the city. And despite some of the changes that they've requested, the other thing I'll note on page 78 is they actually, with regard to the bulk requirements, comply with most of them. The big things they're requesting is the height change and the shoreland change. And we've given variety of shoreland changes for a variety of projects throughout the city. So that's not unusual, especially when you're building this close to lakes, on isthmuses, et cetera. It's gonna happen again because we're building on very small sites that are right next to lakes. I did have one other point, but I forgot it now. I did lose my train of thought. It must be infectious
side of the
over
room.
here.
One final thing, and then I'm ready to vote.
No, I have something then.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
I just want to tell Jeff and Dirk and all other team members, I think this is a fantastic project. It really is. I am, you know, I'm a little disappointed for my constituents that we wouldn't be able to make this work at 4 stories. I understand we would be giving up some of our public amenities. And I'm excited, as Jeff knows, that was my #1 complaint in District 1, trying to get rid of the blight in that area. But I will still be voting against it and keeping my vote consistent with my loyalty to many, many constituents who love the project, don't mind if we would give up some of the public amenities to potentially keep this at the 4 stories, so.
Alderman Kavieski?
I think my final comment is ultimately I think this vote is going to be very reflective of the community. I think there'll be some who have concerns. There'll be some who very much support it. And if this passes, everybody will get a chance to enjoy the amenities that come along with it.
Like to entertain a motion. Alderman Shellpepper.
One last comment. I'll be voting against it because it goes contrary to the downtown overlay plan that was just adopted within the last couple of years. And as much as Alderman Rozak wants to point to other exceptions we've made to the downtown overlay plan, I don't think he could point any specific ones out that weren't already grandfathered in based on when they were constructed or already in construction. That overlay plan wasn't only adopted by this council, it had lots of community input, lots of feedback, lots of time dedicated to identifying what we as a community wanted to see in the downtown, and I'm going to stay consistent with it and vote against it. Vote against this these exceptions. We hear about how important these plans are. You know, we heard from Mr. Duffy about the comprehensive, you know, land use plan or the downtown land use plan. I always hear about these plans, how important they are and how we need to follow them until it doesn't kind of fit with what the city wants, and then we got to change them. So I'm going to stay consistent and vote against it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Alderman Altman-Cloth.
I promise this will be an easy one. When Gallo first got up and was talking about this one, he mentioned it was a first reading, right?
That's
It doesn't
correct.
say first reading on here.
Right.
So if we make a motion, we can waive the second reading?
That's up to whoever makes the motion.
I'll make a motion and waive the second reading.
Second.
The motion has been made and second, waiving the second reading. Do we have any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Let's move on to our next item. Next item is consider act on resolution 22-R3066 to update the city official map. So I think you've done a nice job to share that with the group in the public hearing aspect. Do we have any questions for Mr. Gallo?
I'm gonna.
The recommendation on the one section off of Concord Road, would you just remind the group of that recommendation?
The Plan Commission directed staff to look at the areas between the two crossings of the Oconomowoc River along Concord Road. I did look at that since the meeting, and there was variety of dedications made, but there was 50-foot made as the greatest amount. So I recommend we continue the purple 100-foot right-of-way all the way up to the northernmost Concord River crossing on Concord Road.
Like to entertain a motion
So moved, with the amendment.
with the amendment? Any second?
Second.
Second, Kavieski. Any further discussion? Quick comment, Jason, for you, your intern and your team, nicely done. Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
On to new business, consider act on the adoption of the 2023 City of Oconomowoc budget. Ms. Sullivan Murray. Been a long few months getting to this point.
Yes,
Thank-
it has.
you
Everybody's
for
put
your
in a
hard
lot of work. So tonight, we're looking for a motion to adopt the budget and to set the tax levy.
Before we jump in, I just want to compliment the department heads, all the staff, the council, because this is a pretty arduous process. Whether you agree or you don't agree with the outcome, I can say with confidence that everybody here is trying to do what they think is best for the city. So I'll ask for any comments moving forward. Alderman Shellpepper.
Right now, we're reducing the library's budget as submitted by the mayor in the 2023 budget by $35,000. I'm asking that we only reduce the budget as submitted by the mayor by $25,000. In other words, I'm asking that $10,000 be added back to the library's budget tonight. Why the $10,000? That's going to allow, we've heard from different individuals, from the stakeholders from the library, that will largely maintain most of the services that it had last year. They're going to have to make tough decisions. They're going to have to find reductions in line items. Overall, we're hoping they're going to be able to keep most of the services and standards our residents have come to expect and are willing to pay for. As the budget currently stands, and I don't know if everyone on the council knows this, I just want to make sure we all realize this, all Sunday hours during the school year are going to be cut, as well as hours each Saturday during the school year. It's going to have a direct impact on hundreds, if not thousands, of city residents. Therefore, I am humbly asking this council, I'm pleading with the council, just reduce the contingency budget by $10,000, put it in the library budget. The contingency allocation for 2023 was currently budgeted at $100,000. This will drop the allocation to $90,000. It means our contingency fund will be at $99,845 for 2023. Still enough to guard against hidden costs or fluctuations in the market. So when the time comes for making motions, I'll be making a motion to amend the city's budget to increase the library's operating budget by $10,000 to a total budget of $1,298,074 and reduce the contingency budget 2023 allocation by $10,000 to $90,000. And I am respectfully asking my fellow council members to join me in supporting this motion when it's made.
So am I taking that the motion is made now?
No, not yet. I
Not
mean,
yet.
There's
Okay,
a
I just wanna
discussion.
make
So
sure.
out of respect for
I
the
mean,
rest
are we
of the
at that point,
council,
we can make,
You can do
motion?
whatever you want. It's up to all of you.
you want to go ahead and make the motion?
I'll make that motion.
I will second that.
So motion is made in second to add back
We're
$10,000.
going to add $10,000 to the library's budget and reduce the contingency budget by $10,000.
And to approve the budget as amended.
And to approve
And
the
to
budget
approve
as
the budget
amended.
as amended. So we have a motion and a second, and leave it open for comment and discussion. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Thank you, Chaz, for that. That was wonderful, because I was going to suggest the same thing. You know, there was an original cut for the $50,000. A lot of constituents were saying, don't cut it by $1. Betsy did come back, and she kind of, I don't want to say met us halfway, because it was never my plan to cut from the budget, but she came back with that $25,000. I'd like to also see that we put that $10,000 back in, And when you really do the math on that, it translates to only like $1 in taxes per average household in the city of Oconomowoc.
Any other further comments? Alderman Kowalski.
I want to understand the motion is to put the 10,000 back in and then approve the budget as submitted?
Yes, I'm gonna, yes.
As amended.
As amended.
As,
Because there may be other motions.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It could be.
Right, I mean, obviously, if there's other motions, then we're not gonna be able to approve the budget.
I mean, I think
But-
if we're going to do amendments.
Well,
just-
actually, hey, the
Just
motion
made a
is to
motion.
approve the budget with that amendment.
Yeah,
So
that's,
this is the motion.
that's the motion I'm making.
That's the motion at this time.
That's not gonna.
So if you don't like that, vote no, because there may be other issues that
Yeah,
people want to raise.
I'm moving to make the amendment and then approve the budget as amended.
Right.
Is everybody clear on where we are?
What do you?
Would you rather just do the amendment and then?
I don't have any other issues that I want to fight on the budget
Okay,
or go
all right.
over.
So a motion is made.
We'll take it.
So I'm
It's
willing to just be
seconded.
done with it. We'll do the 10,000, take 10,000 out of the contingency, pass it, and let's move on.
Motion's made. It's been seconded. Further comments or discussions? Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, so we had a variety of workshops. We spent, I mean, here's the budget books for everyone that cares about everything we've actually looked at. We spent about 12 hours going through the budget. We've had votes on this issue already. I was hopeful that we would have a vote to finalize the budget today as is without additional amendments. But I would encourage people to vote against this, because if we're going to amend this, then I may want to amend other things. And I think that we should engage with other amendments.
I think that sounds vindictive.
no.
Why is it vindictive?
This is both the operational and capital
Correct.
budgets.
The entirety of the
It's-
city
it-
budget,
And,
yeah.
and I have expressed to the mayor that, and we had conversation about the tuck pointing, and that being rolled into a larger capital project as an overall exterior, interior project. So I'd like to see that out. This kind of, it'll open up a lot of things. So I'm not in support of.
Well, to finish, where I was going with that is the budget as we amended it was still a 2.4% increase. There's been a lot of misinformation out there about what this is or is not going to do. What you said, Alderman Shellpepper, is patently false. They don't need to change those hours. That has only been Betsy's suggestion to their board. That's their board's decision, not ours. But if the library can't live with what I consider minimal cuts this year, and to actually, Floss and I don't often agree, but she suggested if we're gonna have such problems with operational budgets, we should get rid of the long-term space needs study. I put that space needs study in thinking that that was going to happen. This to me seems like political gamemanship to make the one amendment and then approve the budget without giving us a chance to do any other changes to the budget. That's unfair. And we had workshops to do this exact thing. And we all were here for those workshops, most of us were, to have those debates, to flesh this out. Tonight is supposed to be more of a formality. I'd be curious what the mayor thinks about this, because my understanding is he encouraged me to try to move forward with the budget as is. So I'm curious what your position is, Mayor, on
Yeah,
us coming
well,
here.
well, and
on-
before that, before you call me a liar though on the
No, no,
floor.
I didn't call
Mr.
you a
Rosa,
liar.
could I-
No,
could I
no,
respond to
wait a
that?
second. I
Yeah,
didn't
hold
call-
hold on,
I didn't
hold
call
on.
you a
You said
liar.
what I said was patently false.
Order, guys, let's
It
let's
was
stop.
false.
Hey,
That change is-
gentlemen,
that change
let's
has not
stop,
been made.
please. Okay. So let's just be cordial, and we can agree to disagree. And so you both can have a comment, and then let's move on
Yeah.
from
Could
there.
I
So
respond to the?
you wanted to respond, but let's keep it civil, please.
Right, absolutely.
Or I will take other
Absolutely.
actions.
I'm basing my numbers on the numbers I'm being provided by the library director, who has told us straight up, Sunday hours are going to be cut, Saturday hours are going to be reduced. So if you want to call her a liar, feel free to do that. If you want to say that's patently false, feel free to do that. I don't understand why we're playing a game of chicken between the city council and the library director. That doesn't seem like the way we should operate our government. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Rozak, comment?
Yeah, the reason it's false is because those cuts have not been made yet. The library board makes that decision. The memo that Betsy sent around in the October meeting was simply the suggestions based on the cut. It's not final. They can choose to move other areas of money around. And you're right, there is a little game of chicken going on here. I completely agree with you. And it's actually coming from the library. We have had years past, many, many years, and I've got them in front of me, where the library budgets year to year have actually been cut. What we've been hearing around this entire debate is we're cutting the library budget, we're defunding the library. That's not true. We're reducing the requested increase. In 2010, and there's a lot of things going on, there was an actual reduction year to year of 2.2%. In 2016, I was actually on council, 8.7% year to year cut, 8.7% cut. That's a year to year. In 2017, the budget was completely flat. So the misinformation that's being spread about this debate is, to me, what's sad. And look, I think we should not be playing a game of chicken on this floor. If we're going to make an amendment, we should make amendments, and then we should all be able to make whatever other amendments we want. So I encourage the aldermen, and I think it's fair, if Alderman Shellpepper wants to make an amendment, make your amendment. And then if I want to make an amendment, I should be able to. So if you don't want to approve the budget with that amendment, vote nay, and then let's go on to a normal, orderly process, like we had done through the workshops for about 12 hours, where we made amendments, we had very vigorous debates, and then we had discussion, then we came to a vote.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Lori, or Miss Murray Sullivan, can you come up? Can you pull up the chart that shows the different percentages for the different departments within the city? And the statement that I want to make here, and the hour is getting late. The one term I hear used a lot, especially within, our Western Lakes Fire District, is the spirit of cooperation. And I wish that we were seeing more of spirit of cooperation within our different departments. And I apologize if this sounds harsh, but would we be fighting to put money back into Park and Rec if Craig Hepner had rallied the troops to inundate us with emails and phone calls and public comments? Or are we caving to this because of that? Now we know that Betsy's held to a different set of standards than Craig. Craig can't do it. Betsy can. She's not accountable to Mark Fry. She's accountable to the library board. We're not, and again, I'm tired of hearing defunding and cutting the library. The library is still going into 2023 with a 2.41% increase. Other departments are going in with a lot less. I'm done.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, I'm not making the argument that the budget's been cutting. I'm arguing that the services that our community residents have come to expect on Sundays and Saturdays are being cut. And I understand that might require a larger increase than the 2% that we are increasing this budget over. And so I am just asking this council to approve this amendment and approve the budget. You're taking $10,000 out of a contingency fund that in all purposes is overtaxing our residents as a slush fund that we can.
Let's put all the departments back to what their original ask was.
That we can sit on. I'm not aware of any other departments that have told us that direct services they provide to the community that they have protested against cutting are being done in this budget. You'd have to give me specific examples of directors of other departments who have protested against the cut for specific city services that residents, hundreds and thousands of residents within the city currently rely on.
Alderman Kavieski.
To Alderman Altman-Cloth's point, we have seen a coordinated effort by the library to get information out that isn't necessarily accurate. This is an increase year over year. This is a $1.288 million budget, and it's a $10,000 discussion. Somebody made a comment about the city's $15 million budget and how can we not find just $35,000. This is a significant budget, and the ask is for $10,000. They can find ways to operate and fulfill their obligation and their duties as a library with the $35,000 reduction of increase year over year. I have been coming to the library since 2019, volunteering my time, effort, and talent for whatever anybody would consider it talent to help with fundraising And I've successfully done that in several projects throughout the city over the years. We've started in good faith the discussion associated with that. This really has me questioning my commitment to doing that. It takes me away from my family. It takes me away from other priorities in my life to do something like that, to have a coordinated effort against a policy associated with a budget, not the services that you provide with the budget, but how you apply that budget. Not my deal. This aggravates me to no end to hear the comments that are being made vindictively. And I'm going to vote no the way this is structured right now.
Any other comments? We have a motion and we have a second. We also have a request for maybe rescinding it is what I'm interpreting, but that's not what's has been brought forth. So I'm trying to follow our parliamentary Roberts rules. We have a motion, we have a second. Are there any further discussions? Alderman Mulder.
So I guess when I coordinated effort, I'm not privy to any emails that went around. Certainly, I think there's a lot of supporters of the library that Betsy speaks with on a regular basis, and I'm sure she fought for her department, as I'd expect any of our department heads to really fight for their department. I've been on council for 2.5 years. This is the most feedback I've gotten from any on any issue. The last 2 budgets we've passed have had 0 people in attendance, besides you, Miss Owen. It's clearly a passionate issue, right? I mean, we're debating $10,000 out of a $15 million budget, and we passed the utility budget of $38 million, unanimously without discussion. So I don't know how it became a lightning rod, but it did. Matt, I'm going to respect your request, and I'll vote down so that we can have open discussion about other points. I'm going to vote for this. I hope other people will vote for it. I feel very strongly that Sunday hours are incredibly important. Yes, it's a 2.4%. To be whole with last year, they needed a 5.5%. 70% of their budget is people. This does not give them the people hours they need to be open on Sunday. Sunday is important. It's when kids can do homework. It's if you don't have high-speed internet at home or access to resources, the library is the place you get them, or you go sit in the outside Starbucks and use their Wi-Fi. So I'm with Chaz. I hope everybody will vote for $10,000. I think it's really important for our community. I'm sorry this has become a lightning rod, but I will vote against it so we can continue the discussion on other points.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
I'd like to retract my second.
So motion is made, but the second has been retracted.
I'll pull my motion then.
And the motion has now been pulled, so there's no motion on the floor. So I'll leave it open for discussion.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we put the 10,000 back into the library.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas,
Nay.
Alderman Rozak,
Nay.
Alderman Altman-Cloth,
Nay.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
It is a tie vote.
Aye.
Wait, wasn't it
Mayor?
tied?
Where's it coming from?
It was 4 and 4.
Was?
We were all 4.
Oh,
Contingency.
oh, you said aye? Over there? Sorry, I was already hit a.
The motion has been made and it's been carried to add back in $10,000.
From who said aye? I'd like to make a motion to remove.
One moment, please. This program doesn't allow me to
Yep.
do tiebreakers, so I have to fudge it. 1 second.
That's cool.
It takes me long because I
I
have
get
to
it,
save it
yeah,
and
no,
stuff.
you're good, yeah,
Okay,
have at
so
it.
now I need to get back to where I add.
Okay, I just have a question while you're getting ready. Alderman Douglas.
Point of order,
Okay.
the motion was to put 10,000 in the library fund, didn't say where it was coming from.
That is a good point. That was not done in the original
It was in the original
motion.
one that was rescinded, but not the one that was just made.
Yeah, that's actually correct. Do you want to restate the motion and revote?
Or just make another motion where you should take it
Yeah, I'll
from.
make a motion to add 10,000 into the library, reducing the contingency by 10,000.
Funded from the contingency.
Thank you. Call roll, please. Or do we have a second? I'm
I
sorry.
didn't hear one.
Second. Call roll again.
1 second. Okay. Alderman Douglas.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Nay.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Okay, it's a tie vote.
Aye. Alderman Kavieski.
I'd like to make a motion to remove the needs study from the capital budget associated with the library.
Second, Douglas.
Okay, I can't do this that fast.
Okay,
Yep, that's cool.
we'll just
We'll
have
pause.
discussions while you're getting set up. I'd like to open it up for discussion. Alderman Shellpepper.
I'm going to vote against the motion because this isn't coming from the levy. This is coming from the reserve. Yes, it is.
In our budget
Correct.
book, it's under levy.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
On the budget
Correct.
book, it says levy.
It's not the levy,
Okay.
though.
I want to tell you, it's not the levy. When we worked at the workshop,
Oh.
this was a 2024 levy item. You voted to move it to 2023, but we had no levy left. So it had to come from
The general
reserves.
fund.
So I apologize if it was wrong in your book, but it was levy in 2024.
made the
But when you moved it to 2023, we had no levy room.
Right, so
And
so
we
I,
decided to put it in reserves.
So-
However, that's still part of
Of
this
the
budget.
budget. So I will be more clear in my motion that the removal of the 2023 needs study for the library be removed from the reserve funding.
right, well,
Second.
A second from Alderman Douglas. Open up for discussion.
and just to reiterate the point, it's coming from the reserve. So I'll be voting against it. This isn't, if this had been in the operational budget, I would have been, I probably have been open to making some compromise there to supplement the library budget to make sure that we could get to the number we needed, but it's two completely different funding sources, and so I'm just not tying the two together.
Alderman Rozak.
Well, it's not two different funding sources, Chaz, it's all the taxpayers.
So it's all,
It's-
well, wait, it's
yeah,
it's from
it's
the
all-
reserve versus the
yeah.
capital reserve versus the tax levy, right?
It's all the
Yeah,
taxpayer.
right, it's
So
not the
I-
operational budget versus the
Right.
capital budget.
I mean, would you like me to finish? Can I finish without being interrupted? It's all coming from the taxpayer, one way or the other, whether it's reserve or levy or however it goes. I'm going to vote in favor of this. I actually moved to put this need study back in, but as our former mayor, Ms. Whalen, pointed out, why are we doing this space needs study if we're struggling to fund operations now? If we're going to build on a library without any definition of where we go with this new build? There's been no definition of what that's going to be for. And at this point, I don't think we need the need study right now. I don't think it's something that we should support at this point. We asked for a very modest, I think a modest reduction. As I proved historically, there have been significant cuts. And if a library in one instance can't make some additions, and look, we had other departments that took significant cuts. The library was in the exact middle of cuts, both numerically and in percentage-wise. So how can we go forward with a need study that may add millions and millions and millions of dollars of funding from either the city or from the city citizens, along with operational costs for that? So that's why I'm going to vote against it at this point. I think it's right to pull it out until the library can get its house in order. And look, operationally, one of the things that we talked about when we talked about the operational budget is how are we funding all the book deliveries? In the most recent memo from the library, it said they're actually thinking about adding a worker to help with additional book delivery. And we talked about the unfairness of us subsidizing that. And I don't think we can move forward and subsidize a whole new library and that funding until we get some of those concerns in perspective.
Alderman Mulder.
I think it is a bit of a chicken or the egg, I guess. You don't know until we do a need study and understand part of that, I believe, Betsy, if I'm correct, is that it's an analysis with community members and with the library staff about what we want the future of our library to look like. One of our residents talked about the library they were in Kansas, which I will tell you is typical of where public libraries are moving towards. Ours is a very traditional library that is not in keeping with library trends. That may be fine for people on council, that may be where you want it to be, but you should know that our library is not representative of what a public library in a similar demographic city like ours would be. You go around Madison, you're gonna find very different library experiences you're gonna find in Oconomowoc. My vision would be to help us take there. I think without a needs analysis, I don't know how we even begin to plan. There's been a lot of discussion about fundraising in the library needing to do that. I think that's an excellent point. I don't think there are probably a lot of examples around Wisconsin where large library additions or remodels have been done without considerable or entirely through community foundation, community support, whether it's through the Friends Group or other, so that needs to be part of it. But that needs study is where we create that vision. That's where we create the excitement around what that library can be. Clearly, there are a lot of people in this community that will support through letter writing and emails and phone calls, and hopefully will also support with their checkbooks when the time comes. So I'm in favor of keeping this in. I'm going to vote to keep it in. I certainly understand the future budgeting challenges there will be if we have a larger operating space and we have larger staff to go along with that. But we won't even know if that's a reality unless we do the study. I don't know that a much larger footprint is what's required. We don't know that because we haven't had the conversation. The library was built in the 90s, early 90s, back late 80s, back when books were everything, and the library is set up to process books and to check out books from a giant desk. That's just not the way it's done anymore. So I don't know that we are going to have this giant building need, but we need a different footprint of what's there, perhaps with some additional space. We won't know any of that. Just a few weeks ago, the 8 people here unanimously said, put that in. We have a very powerful ex-mayor that really has a lot of sway over you to have changed that in just with one sentence a few weeks ago. So I don't, I understand it seems like this is probably going down in flames from where I sit right now. I think it's a mistake. I think knowing what we're facing versus not knowing it is better. Saying, well, we probably can't fund it anyway. It's going to be so big. There's no support for this in the community. I don't know really what's changed in 6 weeks, except that we've had a lot of people come out in support of the library, and that's caused us to not want to do a needs study for some reason.
Alderman Kavieski.
So I'm going to go back to 2019, and I do think they need a needs study, but I don't think that the city should be funding it. I think our citizens need to realize the library isn't funded solely by the city. There is multiple funding sources for the library. Is that correct? Multiple funding sources should be allocated to the needs study. Everybody needs to have skin in that game, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair to our taxpayer. I think that's fair to the users, and I think it needs to be. I think it needs to be fundraised for, because without that engagement, without multiple sources of revenue making that needs study a reality, you're not going to have the skin in the game to take it to the next step. And that's what we talked about, me and my involvement in doing a vision fund as part of that fundraising effort. And there's not one person that I represent that got really excited when they found out that in the circular, they were promoting material like Lick Like a Lesbian. That's your library. It's in a circular that anybody could have picked up off the front desk. And I think the vision of the library should be better defined. I think the library makes the community a vibrant place. The people who use it, I'm one of them. When I started a renewable energy company with solar and small wind, I went to the library, and through the resources that the library had, the materials that I needed were brought in from outside of our building. Nobody's questioning that I know of the value of the library, but how it's functioning and how it's engaged with needs to continue to be worked on, and I would ask your support to remove the need study, not because it's not needed, but because of how it needs to be funded.
I want to make sure that we stay focused on, we're talking about the budget, and we have different amendments. We have a motion, and we have a second. And let's try to stay focused on the topic at hand so we can try to get to the end result. You had raised your hand, Betsy. Okay, it's not budget related? Okay. And I want to keep going. I have Alderman Rozak and then Alderman Mulder after that.
Yeah, just briefly, if the library is going to need to raise potentially millions of dollars for however that need study looks, this is the good time to start. If there's the groundswell of support for $10,000 shift in our $15 million budget, I would hope that the people that with the groundswell of support for that $10,000 will come out in support of putting together $30,000 for their first fundraising effort to raise funds for the need study. To me, that makes sense. We've got a situation where, this is from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Since 1992, most libraries are not funded solely by taxpayer money. Our library is. Our fines and fees are minuscule. We don't charge for room rentals to almost anybody. It's only $600 a year room rentals. We don't charge for any of those book deliveries. I know some of it we can, some of it we can't, or we could ask for support. Last year, we only had $6,000 in donations to the library. So if there's really this groundswell of support, if there's really the folks that really want to get out there and help the library get over that next hump, this is the good time to start. Fundraise for that 30 grand or the 25 or whatever that is ultimately, they could fundraise 50. They could do the biggest need study they want because they can take segregated funds from those donations and spend it however they want because it's a separate board. That money doesn't have to come from reserve, levy, wherever it's coming from. So I'm encouraging the folks that came out and supported the 10,000 to get out and support the first fundraiser to raise the funds to do the need study.
Alderman Ellis? Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Mulder first.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. I always miss Kevin.
We all miss Kevin.
Oh.
Don't recognize him with the
It comes a point when an organization has to begin the process of stepping out and becoming more financially sound without the backing of something that at the end of the day can or cannot substantiate helping them. I had a little bit of an example that I'm going to give you, and it kind of ties into all of this. Okay, so you've got the $10,000 back. As a councilman, I'm going to own that, regardless of my vote. As far as I'm concerned, it passed, so it's a good thing, okay? As far as the study is concerned, with all those individuals, as Matt Rozak has stated, have come out to support the library and make sure that 10,000, if not more of it, was put back into the budget, they need to go ahead and pony up now. Because what happens here is this. Where does the government get its money from? The people. We can go ahead and we can do this study, and we can give you the $30,000. We can give the library the $30,000. But where are we going to get it from? The people. There needs to become a point when the library says, we got this. We got enough backing. I can make enough phone calls to get the money associated for that study. My daughter called me today, and she told me, she said, I have some really bad news. I said, well, what's that? She said, well, I'm not going to graduate in 4 years. I have to go a summer. And that means that, you know, we have to go out for financial aid. And I said to her, I said, well, how many courses do you have to take? She says, I have to take one. And I said to her, I said, I'll pay for it. You've worked really hard for the last 4 years. I'll pay for it. And she said to me this. She said, no, I don't want you to pay for it because I want to become financially sound enough that I don't have to depend on you at all. And at first I was taken back from it, but then as I think about it, that makes good sense. It makes good sense because that brings pride into play here. And now let me circle this back. The library needs to do the same thing. Yeah, shucks, we can cut you a $30,000 check tomorrow because it's not coming out of the levy, it's coming out of the general fund. But you have enough backing right now that I'm almost certain you can find 30,000. Easy. I'm done with this. Okay? People want the government to pay for everything because they think that the government has all the money in the world. But can you say inflation? And then you're going to turn around and you're going to start, I won't even say the word because I know I'm on tape, about how things are getting so expensive. Now, we put the $10,000 back in. Now it's time for the library to step up and say, okay, we're going to take, you guys take the study off the books. We will take care of that. If not, hey, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next year when it comes to taxes. And I'm almost certain my phone is going to ring off the hook saying, my taxes are going up. Why are my taxes going up? There has to become a point in time when you step out and say, I got this.
So we have Alderman Mulder and then Alderman Shellpepper.
I think there's some confusion about what the library is. It's not a business. The library is not owned by anybody except the city. It's a city building. Yes, other people contribute to that, but if we're going to improve the library, it's a city building. It's an asset of the city. We're not asking them to be a business and make money, just like we don't make any other departments make money. We're not out there asking the police officers to do lots of ticketing to make sure they're increasing their rate of return on their police cars. Yeah, it's fine. Take the vote. It's fine.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, like, we're talking about $30,000 coming out of $4 million slush fund this city's currently sitting on. So we've got how much is the reserve, Lori?
Wait, so we just argued about 10 grand,
so
but
hold
now
on,
we
just
can't argue about 30?
so-
Wait, you
So I
just
don't-
The mayor's
argued
not calling it.
Come on,
minutes ago
come on, let,
about
no, Alderman Ellis, no.
What are you, I
Kevin,
don't even know what
please.
your argument is,
Let's-
honestly.
let's
So anyways, I'm
finish your
talking about,
thought.
you're saying you're gonna wonder if we had $30,000 from the reserve fund, you're gonna wonder why your taxes are going up. I just want everyone to know, the city already took that money from you. They already taxed you for it. You already paid for it. And now we're gonna sit on it and we're gonna just hold on to it
that's
because
not
we
true.
know better.
That is
It's
not
our money. That's what's happening right now. And if you really want to know why your taxes are going up, it's because we're adding a $130,000 police officer, and we're also adding a significant portion of the Western Lakes Fire District, which is a referendum we passed. It's not because of the $30,000 space needs analysis.
I'm sorry, but
Thank you,
that's
Mayor.
because of safety. At the end of the day, that is because of safety.
Hold on.
So we
That's
just,
our job here. Our job is safety
I'm not
of this
arguing that.
community.
Not
Can you
arguing.
call the question?
so just one moment, so Alderman Douglas has his
Let's
hand up.
not be so stubborn.
Okay, we're not going in a good direction, folks.
Yeah.
Alderman Douglas,
So I kind of start with what brought to my mind what Alderman Mulder said, and then when Alderman Shellpepper kind of spoke up. about this $30,000. There's multiple other places that have raised money. We're talking about a splash pad. We're talking about a pickleball court. We're talking about body cameras for the police department. We're talking about a canine program. So at that point, then, if we already taxed it, then maybe we should pay for the canine. And then when the next person comes, we should pay for that out of our slush fund. I mean, that's kind of where you guys are directed to. The $30,000 is significantly lower than anyone else has raised money in the last couple of years for anything that they needed. It's that simple. It's not a huge ask. That's all I have to say.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Call roll, please.
What's the, let's clarify what the vote is, please.
Diane?
Remove the 2023 library needs study from reserve funding. That is a motion.
Okay.
And that, I thought it was 25,000. I keep hearing 30.
It's 30.
It's 30.
30 in
Right.
there? Okay, I'm going to add that.
Prior to the vote, I'd just like to make one comment. Alderman Rozak asked me for my opinion, and
That was for
It
before,
wasn't-
that was actually for before.
do you
on the
not
other
want my
issue.
opinion here?
I do. I'd appreciate it.
So, just making a quick comment, the budget was presented to the council in a balanced and a good format by a lot of work by others. It is then the council's responsibility to use their policy decisions, which is what they're doing today. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, they're doing their job. They've worked their butts off to try to accomplish this. In my personal opinion, I initially was not in favor of the needs assessment. You can even ask Betsy, because I challenged her and was a little bit rough with her at one of the workshops, because I see a lot of these assessments. I see a lot of these studies, and they're unbelievably expensive, and then the outcome doesn't give us value. And I was struggling to try to figure out that value. I spent a little time with what I would consider the expert of this industry, which is Alderman Mulder, and he made comments that actually made sense to me now in this assessment. And those comments are, maybe we're able to utilize the space we have better. Maybe we're able to update it. But in all the different projects we do, whether it's this or it's any other project, you have to get either a study or a design work or something so you can figure out what you're doing. So while initially I was not in favor of the needs assessment, Betsy, I was not, because I couldn't see where you were going, nor did you convince me of where you're going. I believe that if this does go forward, it has to be done with a lens cap on it, so if we spend the money, we get value for the report out of it. It's not a lack of confidence, a lack of definition for that. When it comes to the reduction in the budget request, the budget request reduction started at 50,000, then went to 75,000, came down eventually to 35,000. We had our expert here say 25,000 is a realistic dollar amount, and I have never changed from that viewpoint, and I have shared that with the aldermen. I am comfortable with reducing the budget request by $25,000. I can live with 35 if that's what we have to do. I absolutely will fight tooth and nails if it went to 50. And I have shared that with council members here, so they all know my position, but I haven't shared that with you in the public. Because the goal is to try to preserve something that's very valuable in our community. And it may be, how do we fund it, which I think Alderman Kavieski was very clear about. And you can look at that from different perspectives. I can tell you the library is fantastic. The majority of our friends for my family came from story time, when our kids were young and we took our kids there. It has a lot of value in different ways. At the end of the day, it will go well. It will still survive. We will all do just fine, however these votes go. But as requested before, I just wanted to share my opinion as the mayor. My job here is to present everybody with a balanced budget, which was done with the help of the department heads, Lori and Mark. Where it goes from that, as you've seen, I do not get into the debates. If I truly want to get into a debate, I have to step aside, put another alderman in my seats so I can actually actively debate on the council floor. That's the law. So sometimes people say, well, gee, Bob, you don't tell anybody anything. where there are parts of it that you do your work prior to a meeting like this. So while you may be upset or you may be happy based on whatever vote comes forward, I can tell you categorically, every one of these council members are working their butts off, whether you agree with it or not. So we have a motion and a second. We're ready to call vote.
Call the question.
Call the question. So are we, call roll, please?
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Alderman Altman-Cloth.
It was my turn. Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Nay.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So I'd like to entertain a motion for any other amendments or the budget as a whole.
Motion to approve the budget as a whole as amended tonight.
Second.
Real quick, I was going to make that motion to remove the tuck pointing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about
Are
that.
you okay with that?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll withdraw.
Withdraw?
Second.
Withdraw the second. Okay, Alderman Kavieski.
So previously in the workshop, we had, there are several items that I think everybody agrees need to be addressed with City Hall. There was discussion about doing a needs analysis, evaluating all of those projects, bundling that as a capital expense.
Don't talk about needs analysis.
Well,
Too soon, too soon.
I'm for doing the.
Fire up
the
your
needs study.
fundraising, Mark.
Well, there is value in needs studies. How they get funded is why I voted yay. So, we had.
I need to have you be clear as to what you're requesting,
My
sir.
request is to remove the tuck pointing from the capital expense.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yep, that's my motion.
You want to move it to the next year?
I want it moved as part of a larger capital expense project.
But that's an operating expense.
It was an $81,000 capital expense, and it's to preserve the exterior of the building.
Yeah.
So the tuck pointing on the building is a maintenance item. Anything we do inside the building is not dependent on that project. It's to preserve the exterior.
There's additional exterior elements to the building that I think we agree need to be done outside of the tuck pointing, which would include window replacement and other exterior elements. So I think it's probably, again, based on the process we went through, this should have been included in that. I thought it was included in that. It's not. And I'd like to make the motion to remove that from the CapEx. My motion.
So what you're saying is remove the $82,000, $81,000 expenditure out of the capital fund
So it's-
to do the operational tuck
The
pointing.
tuck pointing.
It's
because it
exterior
should be-
cleaning and tuck pointing.
It needs to be done. It just needs to be bundled with the larger project.
Confused. Remove.
That was the discussion. That's what we talked about a couple of years ago.
all 81,000
It's not going that direction. I think it should go that direction.
expenditures.
So a motion has been made to remove $82,000 from the 81 from the capital budget and not to do maintenance work on tuck pointing and cleaning on the exterior. Motion has been made. Has it been seconded?
I'll second it just for discussion purposes.
I'd like to open it up for discussion. Alderman Spiegelberg?
What's the downside to pushing this off, Mark? I mean, I think I know what that answer is, but isn't this just going to maybe potentially make this worse and cost more down the road?
So, because it's a masonry building, we have the mortar joints around all the bricks, and over time, that'll break down. So you periodically clean your building and then find out where those areas need to be ground out and then new material put in. And what that does is it keeps the water from getting behind the brick.
Thanks, Lori.
And so it's a maintenance item. I agree with Alderman Kowalski. We've had other items that have not moved forward, window replacement. Those are, some of the decisions that we have to make as department heads as we come forward trying to work within our budgets. And, right now the priority is that. The clock tower is going to come up as a priority, but we try to space that out. When you look, between Public Works and the building maintenance department falls under that. We took one of the larger reductions in our budget this year. So, we tried to work within the system. It's just that we thought that this was a priority to be getting done. There's a lot of things we'd love to do to this building, but As we've sat here for several hours tonight now and talked, everything's a step at a time, and, what's the priority and where's the money?
So what's your opinion on
I
taking?
think it should be done. I think the exterior.
Alderman Kavieski?
Again, I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be done.
No, I
How
know
it
that.
gets funded has been the discussion for quite some time. So bundling this as a part of a larger project that evaluates the overall exterior of this building was one part of what we talked about. The other part was the interior remodeling that needs to be done. That's another element of what we need to look at. I'd love to see those plans come forward based on, again, I was in the commercial interiors business for a long time. That is the process you go through. You bundle that together, you can put that into a larger debt spend or bond, and it makes it more attainable to do as one larger project as opposed to multiple smaller projects. That's what I think is prudent financially and in the best interest of the building.
So a motion's been made and it's been second. Any further comments? Yes.
If you're going to remove it from the capital budget, I'd suggest that we adjust the fund balance that we're using for the capital budget to cover that.
Deal.
Okay?
Alderman Mulder?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I understand what you're saying, Lou. It seems like that could easily push this several years down the road because it's not really anything that's on anybody's radar right now. We've got a lot of things to pay for. And this is not, I mean, it isn't just, it's maintenance. It's not, so it doesn't feel like we're wasting money. We're getting ahead of it, but it's going into capital versus, I mean, it doesn't feel like the funding source is that different. It's $80,000. I don't have a compelling reason to not do it when the guy that knows the building saying do it. So I want to do the bigger project. This just feels like this is a Band-Aid we should do now is all. So.
We talked about doing windows back in 19?
Alderman Rozak pulled those. I'm not pointing out anybody, but
But the reason they were pulled was to bundle it in a larger project. If you
We
take a
have-
look at our
yeah.
long-term
We
financial plan.
We have a motion
Yeah,
and we have a
so-
second. But also, I just have to ask a question because maybe I've missed something. Was this voted on in our workshop?
It was not. It was mentioned in the workshop, but not
Okay.
voted on, which
Okay,
is
so
why
we
it's
ha-
not in the
We haven't
plan.
missed anything? No, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Nay?
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Nay.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Nay.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
The motion failed.
So I'd like to entertain any other motions.
I'll move to approve the budget as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Nay.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Let's move forward on to our next item. Consider act on setting the 2022 property tax levy for the 2023 budget.
Right, so we need a motion to set the levy at $15,429,994.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Nay.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Moves on to staff reports. Do we have any staff reports?
no, Mayor, we do not.
No staff reports at this time. Like to have any reports or comments from Alderman at this time? Alderman Kavieski.
Go figure, right? Yeah. Two comments. First one is, we have a fundraiser tomorrow for raising money for the K-9 unit for Oconomowoc Police Department at Wine Maniacs. If you think it's funny, don't come. If you think it's serious, because public safety is a serious item, please come and support the police department, support the K-9 unit, and it's an incredible event, and it's an incredible endeavor. Second item is, oh man, so I've been serving our community as an alderman since 2017. It has been an incredible experience. I absolutely love the city. We are coming into December where people are going to be getting their signatures to either run or to retain their seat. I want to take this opportunity to publicly announce that I will not be running again for alderman to represent the city and the residents of District 2. I hope that gives people some time to consider service. Is it easy? No. Is it rewarding? Yes. It is one of the most rewarding things that you can do. So, we hear comments from citizens on a regular basis about all of the things that are difficult. The best way to address that, put your hat in the ring. Whether that is serving an elected seat, or attending a fundraiser, or volunteering your time, or sitting in the audience, we have an issue in our society right now that more people like to complain than to provide action. The only way that we're going to fix that is to fix our approach. Get active. Please consider serving. If you live in District 2, I'd love to talk to you about my experience. I promise I won't scare you away. Or talk to anybody who serves currently or who has served in the past and never leaves you. It changes your life forever. So that's it.
Any other comments from Alderman?
As a fellow District 2 member, you know, I appreciate your service to the district, to the city. When I first was interested in running, I reached out to you and Tom Stray, and so you have been nothing but encouraging and friendly and respectful. And even if we don't always agree on things, you know, you're a great friend and a great asset to the city. So we'll miss you. I'll miss sitting next to you.
Well, we have a few months left, so it's all good.
Don't remind me.
Alderman Rozak.
For me, I think we've been pretty strong allies on council over the years. For my part, you'll be missed. I think you're an asset on the council. You're thoughtful. I think a lot of the stuff you've done over the years, just your fundraising efforts alone for some of these projects, I mean, it's got to be in the hundreds of thousands, mid-100,000. I don't know. I don't even know, between the skate park and body cams that we did together, the K-9 stuff, the splash pad, all these things you're involved in. It's truly incredible. I think we all could learn a lot from you on some of those things. But you'll be missed. Good luck, and hopefully you come out for a budget debate next year just for fun. The other thing, my other comment was I think I voted yea on the budget. The budget, we should, as a community, be proud of what we did with this budget. Not to pour salt on any wounds of any kind, so don't take this as that, but we were able to, with suggestions from the mayor and Mark and this council, able to add another full-time police officer to our community. We didn't get it, a lot of that debate happened in the workshops, but it allows us to be fully staffed 3-4-3. That means when 2 cops are domestic disturbance, we still at least have 1 cop available. There's oftentimes that we are at a 2-3-3 or a 2-3-4 or whatever. We now 232. But right now, we're at it, with the addition of the full-time police officer, full-time next year, we'll be at a 343, which is where we should be at for our community. I'm proud of that work we did to get there. And I think that's a good budget for the people, and we should be happy because it's avoiding, hopefully, some of the things we had to deal with the fire department and future referendums. And we're addressing one of our core issues, which is safety. So.
Any other comments from Alderman? Alderman Ellis?
Lou, thank you for your leadership, man. We've had a lot of conversations. A lot of the things we agreed upon, some of the things we did not. But I appreciate the bar that you set for that next person that sits in that seat there. Thank you. And to the mayor and staff, thanks for putting up with us.
And vice versa.
This was not easy. You guys don't get, this was not easy. I think in our heart of hearts, we wanted to be here 10 minutes, say, okay, budget's fine, and walk out. But we understood that we have a job here that you voted us in to do, and it's very difficult. And I want to thank you guys for the patience which you showed through this time. Thank you.
Final comments from the mayor. Lou, that was a surprise. I wish and I hope we can get someone to fill that role for District 2 that has half of your passion. I don't think anybody here has more passion than Lou does for this city, and thank you. That is very, very much appreciated. The other thing is I would like to make a request of you. Lou's working on something that is incredibly important, and I would like to ask you to continue with that leadership role and find some liaison work to work with this council in the future on helping us reduce fentanyl, the fentanyl problem that we have. He's doing some great stuff with the county. He's working with Paul Farrell, with SOFA, and I don't want to lose that. And what I want to make sure is that the door is wide open, but also maybe there are ways in which we can create opportunities to engage with the council because it's real. And it became real because I learned from Lou. I did not know. So thank you.
Just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
If anybody knows me, I'm not going anywhere.
No.
You'll see me doing fundraisers. You'll see me engaged after April. It'll just be as what I would consider and I've said this publicly, the most important office in the land is a citizen. It is not alderman, it's not mayor, it's not governor, it's not president. The sovereign is the citizen. So I will return to that role.
When you have my word, I'll give you a little bit more than 3 minutes if you come up to that podium.
No.
Do I need an ordinance change for that?
It's the Lou and Flo rule.
So I'd like to, again, thank everybody for coming. This is a lot of work for just making this community what it is today and really where it's going to go in the future. And coming back to the comment that we would love to have more people serve, whether it's on committees, whether it's to run for alderman or for mayor. We need high-quality candidates all the time. But not a lot of people complain, to your point, but not a lot of people engage. And that word servant leadership is what everybody's doing here, and that's very, very important. So I wish everybody a very safe drive home back. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.